Settle in to the first few races of 2026 takes the field to the Peach State to revisit this brand new addition to the Super Speedway echelon. Atlanta, beautiful Hampton, Georgia, where tonight the KBueno Racing Network is glad to welcome you to the fourth race of the Season 2 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series and our second go-around here at the Echo Park Speedway. Glad that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network. We continue this frenetic 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season where up atop the broadcast booth here in Hampton, Georgia, I am Kenneth Bueno. The first three races have seen three different winners, each with a different palette style of racing that all combines here. This Super Speedway at 1.5 miles. It's a unique venue in its own right, still a brand new thing to see for a lot of drivers in this field, and given the fact that we could have the palette of Super Speedway racing come back, this is the chance for some of those drivers who maybe missed out on Daytona to kick off the year, a chance to get themselves back into championship form in a very early season that so far has given us so many great moments. A look at our 2026 schedule takes us here to race number 4 at this Echo Park Speedway tonight on March 15th. This is again our second Super Speedway trip in the first 5 race stretch. We go over to the Lone Star State in a few weeks before then we end up to North Wilkesboro Speedway, a revisit to that track after it's been from some all-star appearances, now making a championship points-paying efforted chance for all the drivers to have a chance there. The brand new North Wilkesboro Speedway had a tire test there last night. A lot of drivers engaging in that. But of course, here at Echo Park Speedway, that is the focus for everyone in this field as it stands right now. And just a refresher as to those who maybe didn't watch Season 1, we're back into a chase format, so every given race matters. And yes, that does include tonight here at Echo Park Speedway. No chances given to those who maybe end up faltering the first time around, and now that we're here for the first time in a little while since the back end of Season 1, it is going to be really interesting to see how that all ends up going through. Let's give you, though, a refresher as to how things happened last week at the virtual Iowa Speedway over in Newton, Iowa. And what a start it was. Ross Harlow being right on the outside front row. Kip Beasley, the pole sitter, his first career pole coming there, but did give up the lead on lap number 1. From the word go, it was basically all Ross Harlow stepping out in front while easily kept him honest. Brandon Banks among those trying to claw their way through the top 10. But of course, it was this 16 car. Most dominant effort we've seen from Harlow since New Hampshire back in Season 1, a race he ended up winning. Here's Matt Bayens, Alex Muscarella, plenty of those heavy-hitting drivers, many rookie drivers as well inside the top 10. But as the long green flag run kicked in, the story shifted from Harlow to Cedric Hunter, the Category 5 esports member, taking in after making the championship for last season. He had the best long run car, and then ultimately calling card came in for Ross Harlow to visit pit road for the first time. This race had gone green the entire way through. There's Kip Beasley coming down pit road as well. It was all about how you can strategically put yourself right in the place to be in this placement where the tires mattered so much. And then at lap 135, finally the caution came out to bring the field to a slow. The 07 of Lauren Vincent, rookie driver, going spinning after his pit stop at the exit of turn 2, bringing us this crucial restart that brought us to the end of the race. Cedric Hunter and Ross Harlow going side by side. Those two would settle it out for the race lead. And then all of a sudden, Warren Kyle Keith made an appearance from stage left, showing up to the top 3, getting around Stempion, firing off at the exit of turn 2 around Ross Harlow, and then stealing the lead into the final stint. Now, the biggest concern for everyone at this point, tires, not the fuel. You can make it to the end. How long could you last on the Goodyear Eagles? Warren Kyle Keith said he could not handle it more. In the final stint coming down pit road, he would give up his early track position. Matt Perusini would also come down pit road, and Cedric Hunter, staying out on the oldest set of tires of the race, kept his composure, kept the tires underneath him, and his first win of season number 2 coming tonight from the Iowa Speedway, coming there last week. His second Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win after his first one struck last season late in the playoffs at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Again, a former Championship 4 contender back in victory lane here in 2026. So he was among some of the many drivers in the playoff trying to fight for their lives last season at this very Echo Park Speedway. The last time we saw this track, it was a semi-final race, a challenge for the Championship 4. There's the big crash that settled us into the final restart. And while the story did lie on those who were going to make the Final 4 and those who were going to see an exit For the last time, it was Steven Maggio, the rookie standout and non-playoff competitor, leading the field in the final few laps. There's Hunter back in second. He ends up crossing the line behind, and Maggio ends up winning 112 laps, leading that the Cairo, New York native did. He will not be here tonight, so a chance for somebody new to etch their name into victory lane and possibly have ourselves a fourth new winner here in 2026, which will certainly be something in a field that now has to worry more about overall consistency instead of having to win and you're in. And speaking of consistency, that has been really the bar set for Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks. Since Banks won the first race of the season at Daytona, he has been nonstop. First, second, and fourth, but all of a sudden the Kentucky native of Jaden Porter has been able to step up to the plate. Top 10 at Daytona, winning the race in the second event of the season at Las Vegas, and then coming back for a second place effort last week at the Iowa Speedway under a long green flag run where he was able to pass the 5 car. Now these two within 4 precious points of each other for the points lead. Of course, at the end of the regular season, a regular season title holder who has the most points by the regular season finale will end up with a certain points tally that goes into their benefit by the time we get out of that final race. And then when we enter the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase for the Cup, then that will matter a ton. That top-heavy driver will have all those points given to him at the end. So it's great to watch these two go at it back and forth, band for band, when it comes down to how many points they can gain any given race. Of course, Brandon Banks, the defending Super Speedway winner, having taken the crown at Daytona to open this 2026 calendar season. He's looking for his 3rd career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory, rather 4th, as he won 2 mile-and-a-halfs last season, then the one at Daytona this time, and could come back to Echo Park with a lot of stuff to play with. Still points lead in the balance as we go forward. So as we watch the drivers get on, final few seconds here in qualifying before we get down to the green flag. Once again, it is our 2nd trip here around this Echo Park Speedway. Saw it back as the semifinal race in Season 1, and that was part of a back-to-back slate of Super Speedway races that brought us into Homestead, Miami in the final race of the championship, and brought, of course, that Zachary Hall title that we ended up seeing with Cedric Hunter, his teammate, coming back right behind him. So as the drivers take the starting grid right behind the iRacing official pace car, let's run you through where everyone will start before race 4 of this 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season kicks off from Hampton, Georgia. And how about it? Cedric Hunter off for the win at Iowa. Doesn't miss a page, doesn't miss a beat. He's on the pole. 31.503 for the driver who came home runner-up last time we were here in the semifinal not that long ago. Kip Easley, who started inside front row, his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series pole, coming at Iowa last week. Now his first chance on the outside of the front row. He brings his number 8 DBR Chevrolet to the green flag first alongside Hunter. Steven Stepien saw his race go awry after leading 15 laps here last season in a crash that basically took him out of the championship for contention. And Brandon Banks and his 5 machines still the points leader entering tonight. He won at Daytona, the first and only Super Speedway race we have run thus far. Back in row number 3 is where you'll find Charles Van Schaik in the 23 after a solid few races through Las Vegas and Iowa. And Timothy Stubblefield, his number 9 car, on the outside in row number 3. Back in row 4, you'll find the 32 machine of Richard Swabley. Stephen Harlow brings his number 6 Chevrolet from the outside in 8th position. He finished here 3rd last season in the fight to the line against Hunter behind Steven Maggio. Kara Walden, after a couple great races at Vegas and Iowa, the 43 car starts in 9th. And Sammy Harrell, the number 42, making his first start this season. So welcome to Sammy Harrell as he rounds out tonight's top 10. Jesse Whittington back in 11th. Jaden Porter, the winner from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, sits back in 12th with a chance to go back-to-back here at Echo Park Speedway for the BBR Racing team. Jason Anderson runs in 13th. Chuck Stevens, a pair of good races, top 10s across the board. The 84 car starts this one from just inside the top 15. Back in row 8, Matt Baynes in his purple number 72 Chevrolet. He'll roll the inside with James Kunkel, his number 12 machine, on the outside in position number 16. Back in row 9, you'll find Alex Muscarella, his 48 car. After a pretty solid Super Speedway run, Muscarella still looking for his first win. Daniel Holdcroft in the 4 machine on his outside in 18th place. Ray Rogers, his number 51, comes in from 19th. Warren Kyle Keith finished in the top 10 last week at Iowa despite coming down pit road in the midway portion of that final run. He'll kick off the top 20. Justin Err back in 21st. Parker Bland rolls her number 26 machine back in 22nd before you'll find Christian McCrelly, the first driver not to take a time in qualifying, back in 23rd. Brad Fulham, the Canadian, back in 24th place in row number 12. Row 13, you'll find Casey Knighton and Kevin Roy, the 28 and the 22. And that'll bring an end to the 26-car field here from Atlanta and Echo Park Speedway. So like we mentioned, our second trip to this mile-and-a-half super speedway that got its reconfiguration back in 2022. And after being known as possibly the hardest track to drive on the intermediate scale for so long to the NASCAR competition, it was repaved, it was refreshed, the banking was turned up from 24 to 28 degrees of banking, and now this has basically become the skillful super speedway race. We've seen tires matter here a lot more than they do at Talladega and Daytona, and like we saw last season, plenty of loose moments entering the corner, and of course, right front tires going away as the run progresses. Although this is a draft-heavy track, this is still a sharper radius of turn. Tires will go through much more of a degradation over time, and that is, of course, that balance of can you be fast in the draft while also saving a bit of your tires on the front and the rear as the race goes on. Quick look at our SKMCars.com race analysis tonight. 200 laps on our Peach Caliber 300 miles, 480 kilometers here tonight from the Peach State and in Georgia. It is a beautiful day to go sim racing inside the sunset. Kind of the similar conditions we saw last season in the semifinal race. We started under this very type of weather at a track that is usually known for scorching hot temperatures and being able to degrade the track surface quite frequently given all the seasons that happen over in Georgia. But this race will take us into the nighttime over the 300 miles you'll see in this race. Cedric Hunter trying to go back-to-back for the first time since Lawson Peel did that feat in a dominant Season 1 effort. Kip Easley, of course, saw himself string along Ross Harlow running in the runner-up spot that first run at Iowa before eventually having his pit road sequence take him back to the top 10, and it was still a solid finish for the Missouri native, but he's got to beat Cedric Hunter to the line with a pair of Chevrolets behind. Drinkin' Bros Racing trying to work in tandem on the outside lane. Green flag here from Echo Park Speedway. We're racing in the fourth event of Season 2. And what a getaway this has turned to be for Cedric Hunter and Steven Stempien, the two working on nose-to-tail effort back to turn one. They take the top spot. Richard Swavely back in third. And Cedric Hunter pushing out in front. Kip Easley dropping to a race-low 7th in the opening lap. And everybody single file through the first two. And now Hunter gets nudged out of line. Stempien rolls the inside. He has a chance to make the first lead change happen on the second lap, and he does. New race leader from Echo Park Speedway, and it's Stempien out in front. Swavely takes second, and the rookie Walden takes third. And again, super speedway racing, like here at Atlanta and Echo Park Speedway, it is the very same as it is at Daytona and Talladega. You work all by yourself. You are in no man's land. Everybody shuffles underneath that 45. Finds space right in between the red, white, and blue Chevrolet of Brandon Banks and the Cheddars.com and the Cheddar Scratch Kitchen Chevrolet of Kip Easley, the two Drinkin' Bros Racing teammates, falling in line with each other, and Cedric Hunter sitting right in the middle. Sort of the similar racing we saw here last season. We did see a lot of more frenetic action in the top spot. And Category 5 Esports, that tandem and the two-car melee, a melee between the 45 and the 23 of Cedric Hunter and the DTH Cup Series defending champion, not here this season, in Zachary Hall. Those two really worked well at the front together, but we did see many aggressive moves at the front, specifically from that outside lane, and you're not seeing it right now, but from what we saw at Daytona, and even a bit of Talladega, seeing the way the lanes work here in this next-gen era, with the organization, with all of those big runs you can get, and of course drivers using the outside to their advantage after not being in a tighter radius than everyone on the inside of the racetrack, hugging that red and white line at the bottom. But so far, no one taking that chance to move upstairs and make a move in the first 5. Everyone willing to stay single file as of right now. And you look at how aggressive drivers might be in this race last season. Of course, given the fact that it was part of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs, we're going to look on board with Steven Stempien, the current race leader. He led 15 here last season before the early crash took him out of contention. Back then, of course, we had our stages in effect. So this, like plenty of the other mile-and-a-half races on the schedule, split at 50, 50, and then 100 in a 200-lap affair, similar to this one we're seeing tonight. But like we saw last season, there was a lot of aggression early on, and as it tapered off through the early portions of the stage, and then as it did very early on in Stage 3 before ramping up again at the end, we're seeing that level of patience played at this moment. Not everyone willing to extend the risk. However, by lap 50, that won't be the case, that the drivers will get aggressive. Most likely, they'll stay in their line, or maybe we'll see a battle or two. But again, it's all in forward towards looking at a solid points position for the chase. And here at Superspeedway Racing, especially that we'll have more events in the chase that will alter the complexion of the point standings, you don't want to have a bad event. If you do, that points will hit you dearly. A driver who gains a lot of points will surge up the standings, and like we've seen before in chase formats, it could very well bump someone in and out of championship contention now that it's the field that makes it in and no eliminations past race 1 of the chase for the cup. And although Stempien isn't necessarily playing it too aggressively right now at the front, definitely wants a look back from what happened to him last season here, where it practically eliminated him from the championship for contention. And it was absolute heartbreak for a driver that needed a big-time moment there in that moment. And running right in tandem with Swavely, Garrett Walden, Jesse Whittington, and Matt Baines, that 72 car, bright purple at the back end of your screen in the top 5. So everyone willing to play it safe. Richard Swavely ducks out of line, and he'll give way for Garrett Walden to take over the second spot on the inside, that blue, yellow, and white Chevrolet. And that'll push us through lap number 10 of this race here from Echo Park Speedway. Cedric Hunter bumping out of line, and he'll work to the inside. Remember, we saw him give up his lead position very early on in the race. Now Cedric Hunter dropping like a rock through the field, and Cedric Hunter coming down pit road. So potential unscheduled stop at lap 10 for Cedric Hunter. He comes in all by his lonesome. We saw him in contention here last season in a short pit effort with his teammate Zachary Hall, but even with the yellows that came out, by the end of that race was able to rally back in a nice way and just about got the race victory. We'll keep an eye on Hunter as he visits pit road here at lap 11. He's the straggler down there. Everyone else has remained on the racetrack on what is now 25 cars on the lead lap as they'll come around to lap the 45 as he makes his trip down the pit lane. First battle inside the top 10 was just around where Jaden Porter, Alex Muscarella were fighting single file. Justin Erb behind them, and all the way back here, Timothy Stubblefield, the 9 Machine winner at Daytona last season to kick off 2025 then. And giving some way there, Brad Fulham behind him, and a couple drivers flailing from the outside lane. That's Warren Kyle Keith, that blue Ford Mustang, the purple and white Jason Anderson Taco Bell car that he made pretty famous back in Season 1. Couldn't get a victory in his rookie campaign, but fighting back here in his sophomore run with the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. Straggles behind Parker Bland and makes a move to her outside in turn 1, although not much help there given, although there will be some help up top now. Charles Van Schaik, that 23 Machine, and Sammy Harrell, the 42, right on the outside. They'll start to build up what is now a semblance of a high lane back to turn 3. There's the onboard look with Anderson. And just taking a look at how difficult it is to drive here at Echo Park Speedway. Again, so different to the likes of Daytona and Talladega. You may have to lift in the corners given the speed that you carry. All the draft is in there. There is still a bit of turbulent air, although you are nearly full throttle. And there's that flip of the throttle from Anderson, although he runs the high lane and he's got the momentum right now. This is not an all-out full throttle super speedway like you expect it to be, especially when the run gets deeper in. If we go past at least 20 to 25 laps in this green flag stint, to which we are inching very closer to that right now, I mean, it will be a battle for track position, of course, but it will be a battle of who can save the tires. We've seen plenty of drivers get loose in the middle of corners, especially right at the entry when the turning radius has to kick up, and you realize just how much banking carries you around this Echo Park Speedway. Again, we mentioned 24 degrees when this track opened way in the 1960s, and then amped up to 28 degrees while also shortening the width of the track surface. It used to be much wider here at Echo Park when it was the formerly known Atlanta Motor Speedway. That was the very rough and bumpy mile-and-a-half track that was all the way down to tire saving and discipline over the course of a long run. It carries the same way just a little bit here at Echo Park, although now it's turned up to about 190 miles an hour, and you're not necessarily lifting off the throttle as much as you would in the old version of this track. And speaking of the old version of this track, someone who knows that venue very well and running well at the front is Brandon Banks, current points leader, winning at Daytona last couple weeks ago, ending up with a top 10 in every single race here in 2026, alongside Jaden Porter not too far behind him in line on the inside as they continue to fight Van Schaik and Sammy Harrell, making a run from the top shelf. Big time move up there, nasty push forward, and they'll get to the outside of Muscarella. But this man right here knows what it's like here at the old version of Atlanta to make a consistent run happen. And the man who's been right on the consistency marker this season continues to run well inside the top 15 as finally a battle ensues inside the top 10. Charles Van Schaik nudging from the outside of Charles Stevens, and the outside line has a bit of life back to turn 1. Van Schaik with his first top 10 coming last week at Iowa after a promising run turned sour at Las Vegas, running 21st. And Van Schaik trying to grab his first win of the 2026 season in a campaign that has so far been filled with previous race winners. We have not seen a rookie get to victory lane, and we have not seen a brand new first-time winner visit victory lane in 2026. Brandon Banks, two-time winner back in Season 1 with a win at Chicagoland, and then backed it up with a win at Kansas to put himself right into the championship round. And then Jaden Porter won in his debut at Dover Motor Speedway back in the opening season. And, of course, last week, the win from Cedric Hunter had one win at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the middle of the playoffs that led to a Championship 4 run. So, at the moment, no one new has been able to step into victory lane, and that also includes those who were around back in Season 1. Drivers like Stephen Harlow, who on plenty of occasions, either in the late goings of the final Sunoco Cup Series season, or even here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series from Season 1, a driver making a switch from number 11 to number 6, running 3rd here last time we visited Echo Park Speedway, and that was one of many affairs in which this 11 car, at the time, now the 6 car, has been able to get close to dropping the Hammah victory lane. Hasn't happened yet for this man who, alongside Ross, have become perennial contenders at the front. But you're right on board with our Charlie Byer photography camera and sits behind Jesse Whittington, just that patient eye that led Harlow to a top 5 running spot at the end of that Echo Park race last season. Now we'll have a proper fight from the high shelf. Richard Swabley has taken note of the run from Van Schaik and from Harrell, so he'll take them upside. And the 3-car Rourke will try to pay off here back to turn 1 as they settle into the top 6. And now the shakeup occurs. Van Schaik maintains up high, and Swabley moves out of the way. Got nudged 3 wide on the outside, and the distance grows between Van Schaik and the rookie Sammy Harrell in that gold and black GOAT Toyota Camry on the outside. One of the only other Toyota Camry drivers in this field, as Cedric Hunter has basically become the lone Toyota runner, apart from what may be Francisco Bacallao, our good friend and broadcast partner here at the KBueno Racing Network, planning to make a part-time run here in 2026. But at the moment, the only Toyota in the field remains to be Harrell, as we've got updated that Cedric Hunter has put himself on pit road and he is out of tonight's race. So will not have a chance to defend his crown from last week's win at Iowa Speedway, nor back up the top 5 finish he picked up here at Echo Park last season. So through 25, Steven Steppe in the race leader, Garrett Walden back in 2nd, Jesse Whittington back in 3rd, Stephen Harlow running in 4th at the moment. Top 5 led, or trailed by Matt Bayens. Top 6 is led by Kip Easley. Charles Stevens in 7th. Muscarella runs in 8th. Richard Swavely 9th. And Jason Anderson, the running top 10. Remember what we saw between Van Schaik and Sammy Harrell? That has since calmed down. The simmering happening around the top 15. Van Schaik and Harrell just sailing back in line to make this a single file train once again. They run 11th and 12th as we run through this race tonight. So you keep an eye at all the distance going on between those drivers at the front, some of those in the middle, some of those at the rear, and you think to yourself, well, why are they doing that? Why are they keeping all this space to each other? Part of that is, of course, the tire-saving methods here at Echo Park Speedway. They're letting off the gas in the entry of the corner. Therefore, if a car in front of them is full throttle without any hesitation of blipping the gas, entering the corner, or lifting off of it, entering either turn 1 or turn 3, then of course that gap will just naturally grow based on the speed difference and the drafting capabilities of either one of the drivers in the field. But then you look at the onboard looks from, let's say, a driver like Brandon Banks. He's keeping a lot of space to the drivers in front. Of course, there is an outside charge, now led by Jason Anderson and that mellow yellow Ford Mustang of Richard Swavely. But you're seeing this space, and you're wondering, well, why are they keeping that much space on the racetrack? And that is for clean air. These cars in the middle of the super speedway draft, of course, they're blocked by the car in front. They are getting a slipstream from that car ahead. However, you need clean air on the radiator of the race car to have the intake come into the engine, have the engine work at 100% capacity, and have it at full power without any issues. If you carry yourself too close to the car in front, that means no air is coming into that radiator. All you're doing is getting blocked by the rear bumper of the race car, that huge spoiler that isn't helping any clean air carry itself to the front end of the Chevrolet, at least in this case for Brandon Banks, but a Toyota or a Ford Mustang for any of the other drivers in the field. But if it's any car not getting clean air, the water temps go up, the radiator temp goes up, and all of a sudden you have an engine that begins to overheat. When the engine overheats, at some point it begins to break. And when it breaks in a very big hurry. And like we've seen at super speedways before, when it does happen in the middle of a drafting pack, everyone either has to get out of the way in a very quick space of time, or it ends up becoming a stack up, and ultimately what ends up becoming a crash. We've seen that plenty of times here on the KBueno Racing Network. Drivers getting very eagle behind the front bumper or the rear bumper of a driver on the super speedway, and just they don't let that clean air come to the front end of the race car, and thus you have that situation. The engine overheats, and at some point it will end up blowing, and it costs the driver a race. For Steven Stepien, it has sort of cost him before in races exactly like these, where instead he was the pusher instead of the pushee. Garrett Walden so far bringing that push to him as this race continues on. Well, Garrett Walden with his best finish of this 2026 season of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, his first go-around with this group. And the driver running inside the top 2 right now with a top 5 finish at Iowa Speedway. Ending up holding on in traffic. We got a good onboard look from his rear spoiler as he steps behind this 88 car and continues to run calmly back in second from lap number 32. But a pair of top 10s, all top 15s to kick off season 2 of the series, and that's something that will work heavily in favor for him if this season rolls through and he's able to keep that consistent finish streak going, and of course solid points to keep him alive in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series chase that'll happen later this season as the field gets around that bright Ryobi car. Chevrolet of Ray Rogers is going to be the first driver that goes a lap down. That's still running on the speedway, and you end up the first driver that needs a wave around, and that SKM Lucky Dog, should we end up with our first yellow flag of the night. So that leaves 24 cars on the lead lap. McCrelly is the last one in the 75 machine. He runs about 7 seconds adrift of Kevin Roy in the 22 car. So as this race continues and drivers further on lose the draft, it will become quite a bit harder for those others in the back of the field to maintain pace, although they are getting active in the back of this field. No doubt about it. They just picked up Ray Rogers, and now 2 of the SKM teammates, and they brought some more with them. It is a Ford brigade on the high lane led by Justin Urban, the Home Depot Ford Mustang, Warren Kyle Keith behind him, James Kunkel, Richard Swavely, and even a bit of Daniel Holdcroft in that 4 car running on the high side. All of them working together just to make hay at the front of this field, although they start to move around. Kunkel makes his move to the inside, a brand new scheme for this 12 car, former winner in Atlanta, and now Brad Fulham gets turned into the outside wall. The Canadian got hit by Justin Erb. Richard Swavely goes sideways in turn 1. And after 35 green flag laps here at Echo Park Speedway, Brad Fulham is the first casualty and our first yellow flag. And this car is torn up. Out of touch from somebody there on the front straightaway. That is a quad oval. And we've seen that apron be used as free game. It is. It's open asphalt. You can go down there. Coming to turn one. Here's a look from Fulham. That bright blue Wendy's Chevrolet. So he'll take note of Ray Rogers, Justin Erb. Companions going up on the high side to work together. There's the bump from Fulham. He takes the apron. And Jason Anderson emerges in the scene. Slight contact. Justin Erb with nowhere to go. And in the aftermath, Richard Swavely getting tapped around by Daniel Holdcroft. Those two drivers working together as they were coming across the front straightaway. Here's the onboard look from Fulham. You'll watch that bright purple and white Chevrolet get into the scene. That's Jason Anderson at the exit of turn 4. So right there, Anderson sees the gap, goes for it, has the head of steam, and Brad Fulham pancakes into the outside safer barrier. The first casualty here tonight from Echo Park Speedway, as the field will visit pit road for the first time tonight, led by Steven Stepien, who has been the driver to beat all night long, has maintained his composure. And the good news, at least for Ray Rogers, is that should he had not been involved in that incident, he will be the SKM lucky dog and will get the lap back here at lap 37. So Stepien comes in. Again, this is a track that needs fresh tires in order to participate at a high level and be one of the people at the front as the speed scrums off over our longest run of the night so far in our opening stretch. Out goes Walden, out goes several others. Battle for second place coming off of pit road, but Steven Stepien has the headway. And the 88 car, the Massachusetts native, will stay up in front and will continue leading this race, already breaking free of the 15 he led here last season before the crash got him. He has now led the most laps in his career here at Echo Park Speedway at over 35. Stepien going into this as the record holder for most laps led in a single race in Droppin the Hammah Cup Series history, dating back to that 2025 Season 1, 156 laps that he led back at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Ended up being his only dub of 25 then, and looking for his second Droppin the Hammah Cup victory as he runs in the race lead. Walden back in second, and the rest of the order files back with Stephen Harlow, back with Jesse Whittington, and Matt Bayens, the current top 5. So let's get a word with Justin Erb, as he was slightly involved in that accident. Justin, you got a copy with us?
Yeah, I got a copy.
All right, Justin, well, you were working with some of your SKM teammates in a single file line. Car comes up from the inside. What did you see there off of turn 4?
I saw absolutely nothing until something hit me. So I can't really say anything on that.
Oh, you've got a bit of damage, but this car seems to be in rather good shape. You were working well with the teammates there. Of course, everyone trying to move just a little bit forward as the races progress. What have you taken note of throughout the draft so far tonight, and what may be of use after that first run as we go back to green soon?
I'm just noticing that as the run gets going, everyone seems to get a little bit looser, which is a little bit different for super speedway stuff. So keeping her straight and squared up is definitely going to be the play here.
All right, Justin. Well, a race car that's still repairable and a car that's still in the field. So, Justin, we appreciate the time and best of luck on the restart.
Thank you.
The Justin Erb, driver for that SKM team. Ford Mustangs here for 2026, and after a pretty solid start for Erb, he's going to be back at the end of the field as the pace car will come off this time by for our first green flag restart of the night after the first yellow brought out by the 19 of Brad Fulham spinning in the quad oval. And Justin Erb, what a great character added to the Sunoco Cup Series history, and then adding into this brand new revamped Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. Started back with Gran Turismo 4 before jumping into Project Cars 2, which he calls his first proper sim. He met some of those Droppin the Hammah guys in that game, which ended up just tallying over to iRacing. And he told Richard Swavely and the Driver Spotlight crew that what keeps him coming back is the competitive spirit of always trying to do better every single time he gets behind the wheel. And although he didn't see much on that incident until he was rather involved in it, Erb with still a lot of time to go to make this race right. Green flag back in the air. First restart. A lap 39 of 200 from Echo Park Speedway, and it is a wonderful jump for those on the inside. Garrett Walden stranded by any help, but he nudges right into the line that opens up between Jesse Whittington and Stephen Harlow, who takes over second out of turn 2. And now the outside led by Kip Easley, the Missouri native who started on the outside of the front row, trying to hold on for dear life inside this top 10. He's got help, Parker Bland, James Kunkel, Jason Anderson behind, but still not yet able to beat Sammy Harrell inside the top 10. And all chasing Eric Schaefer at the front as he continues to watch what's going on from the outside charge. We haven't seen a proper run from those guys on the outside yet. We only saw just a bit of Charles Van Schaik and, of course, Sammy Harrell. The two cars working together on the inside now in 8th and 9th. But some of those taking notice. Here comes Van Schaik. Here comes Sammy Harrell. They'll join the group that's making hay on the outside lane. Once again with a chance to gain momentum. Easily ducks down to the inside. The top two on the outside remains the 23 and the 42. Now here comes Warren Kyle Keith to add some more help. And they'll start to make their move through the top 10. Right around Jaden Porter, that purple Ally Chevrolet, the Lowe's car of Alex Muscarella on the inside. And Van Schaik with a chance to try and lead some of his first laps in this 2026 season. He'll tally from the high side. They've got help, and they've got to move inside. Bobbles in turn 3. Here comes Van Schaik with a run off turn 4 to get into the top 6. And watching this in the back, Stephen Harlow running second, just keeping a keen eye on what's going down behind him. The activity starting to roar up, although they are slowing each other down just a little bit. That side draft with this next-gen car, a recent aero update strengthened that phenomenon, so you will see this outside gain some momentum off the corners. However, if they stay close enough to those on the inside line, they'll start to drag back each other, and ultimately that results in more lost time and further separation. That's part of why we didn't see Van Schaik and Harrell make too much progress in the top 5. Last time we saw them utilize the high lane, they're just getting pulled back by everyone who continues to remain very organized on the inside. Alex Muscarella just flirting between both lanes at the exit of turn 2, staying under, and then coming back up high. And Stephen Harlow just running behind Stempien, trying to save as much fuel as possible. We did end up with quite a long green flag run last time we were here, back in the semifinal of Season 1. And Harlow, who up until this point only one top 10, with a 5th place right in the middle at Las Vegas Motor Speedway Race 2, 22nd place finishes at Daytona to kick off the year, and at Iowa Speedway last week. So looking to gain back some crucial momentum and be back on par with the rest of this field. The onboard look shows you the tense nature of behind the wheel here at Echo Park Speedway, how you have to be on all 10 toes. Any of those drivers behind can make a move, it can take you out of line, or of course this car can snap loose and it becomes a big-time problem. There's Muscarella getting Matt Bayens out of line. He'll progress one more into the top 5. So Harlow, the Fairhaven, Vermont native, will sit back in line, and we'll keep watching what could be the progress on the high lane that is now dissolved into the nature of the back of the field. Matt Bayens now the leader there after he got sent to the inside right here on this Echo Park Speedway quad oval. And one of those defining features of this Echo Park Speedway is, of course, that paved over quad oval section of the racetrack. And in the old version here at Atlanta, of course, you had the grass not be an apron. So if you got down to that quad oval just a little bit, you had some asphalt that was paved down there for the logo of the track, but you didn't really have much other than that. You had the grass underneath, and then you just had that, and you had the asphalt to keep working with and trailing back to turn 1. But here with this brand new surface at Echo Park Speedway, and you'll get a better look as they come off of turn 4 and revisit the front straightaway, which is still in that quad oval configuration it has been for a majority of its history from the 90s, and when they reconfigured it then, a few years after 1992, to make it a quad oval cookie cutter configuration. You'll see that paved over track, that where all the logos stand before the grass hits, that is still free real estate. You can make a move underneath. We haven't seen too many drivers get eager with stepping underneath that red and white line, but should the event get to a moment where there is a last lap pass for the lead, there is 3 wide for the lead, there is a close-knit pack that is fighting together, if someone wants to make a move down there, they can. It is legal grounds for making a move. So it's kind of unlike the double yellow line rule at Talladega and Daytona. So you have the opportunity to step under in what is technically the apron of the racetrack, but it's still a bit of the racing surface. So you can go down there and make a move. Only caveat is, you see that line merge up, that shortened width that's carried in the banking through 1 and 2. And all across the Seco Park Speedway, you'll see that line come up. So we'll get another good look here. On board with the second driver in point standings right now, and Jaden Porter, the winner from Las Vegas. So you'll see him carry the bottom, all single file. You'll see this start to open up the exit of 4, right around that turn 4 logo. There's where it opens up. You've got all that pavement underneath. You can make a move under there, but you have to get right back to the surface. You see how it comes back to the right. It narrows up again. And we've seen so many crashes happen because of that very phenomenon. Drivers go underneath. They try to make a move on the bottom of 2 and 3 wide. And then at that point, they have to realize they merge up to the racetrack and either they cross out a line or they figure out some way to just merge themselves back in traffic. And we've seen that miscommunication between drivers in the pack become a big-time issue, and has resulted in several crashes here at this 1.5 mile super speedway. Wasn't necessarily the cause of trouble in many of the crashes we encountered last season. And as of right now, no real contention from those on the high side of the racetrack. We have not seen a side-by-side battle for the lead since Cedric Hunter got out of the way in the first few corners and allowed Stepien to make a move on the inside. There's Alex Muscarella. When the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series here at Daytona, had a chance to win. Internet connection issues had him spinning on the back straightaway and made a move on the outside, looking to gauge some interest on those that possibly can make a move with him. And we've seen that aggression out of the 48 car of Muscarella, who's still searching for win number 1 in his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career. The driver for that Droppin the Hammah team, alongside Stepien and a few others, being one of those powerhouse organizations in this series. Muscarella not afraid to move his nose out, not afraid to get drivers with him and make aggressive moves when need be, but at the moment he is falling through the field. Sammy Harrell getting around. We saw that outside move that really got him out of shape. Parker Bland trying to make a look from the outside happen with that Georgia Bulldogs number 12 of James Kunkel on the inside. That's an SEC team that's on the bottom. And Parker Bland moves out of the way. Now the single file line will start to move away this 26 car and allow for them to just continue their train on the bottom. So far, only 2 real chances at the outside lane developing any sort of semblance of speed. But really the idea is, if you're on that high side, you're just letting cars by you on the bottom, and you're not necessarily making any headway by being up there on the racetrack, even if it does include a few other drivers. There's Justin Herbert we talked to under our first and only yellow flag of the night. He'll fall a lap down as he falls in the middle of the draft. So far, what a drive it's been by Steven Stepien, continuing to lead this field here at lap 56 as they cross the start-finish line. Stephen Harlow behind him. Garrett Walden running back in 3rd. Whittington runs in 4th. And Jaden Porter inside the top 5. And we've talked about it before, but what a way it is to welcome back Jesse Whittington to this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series group. He was, of course, part of the final few seasons of the Sunoco Cup Series, searching for wins there. Very strong race etiquette, and a driver that very much knows how to keep things clean and very respectful among his colleagues. Someone that really did put his name in the emerging group of what turned out to be Droppin the Hammah Cup Series roster entrants. Of course, all the new names here in 2026. Can't forget drivers like a Garrett Walden or a driver like a Christian McCrelly, Matt Bayens, all these new names that we, of course, welcome with open arms. But you watch what Jesse Whittington did in the final season then. And for him to be able to come back, it is great to see him in this series once more after calling many of his moments back in the late 2020s before that series fell apart. And as this DTH Cup Series came into fruition for the first season, Whittington was not part of the roster lineup until now. And it's great to see him back, and a great run so far for this 94 car who sits in the top 5. So we mentioned Alex Muscarella. There he is, top 10 running car. Now falling back to 11th in the battle with Sammy Harrell, but he's got help. So James Kunkel, Parker Bland, Matt Bayens will give him some proper assistance. One trailing car in the back that'll try to offer some semblance of drafting help. That is, of course, one of the SKM cars back in Casey Knighton. or rather Kevin Roy in the 22. That is the Celsius car. Brandon Banks, Casey Neistat, and Christian McCrelly have fallen off from the lights of the pack. We saw this 5 car in the midst of the top 10 earlier on tonight and made that pit stop like everyone else did about 22 laps ago. There's trouble on the inside, and it's Parker Bland going for a spill at the exit of turn 2, but she holds on to it, and a hit to the inside wall is not going to convince iRacing Race Control to throw the yellow flag. So Parker Bland's damage on the right front of her Ford Mustang is going to ail the machine, but it's going to keep us green for the moment at lap 60. So here's the second look, running outside like we mentioned with Kuko and Alex Muscarella. Oh, and just wiggled loose at the exit of 2. Car stepped out from underneath her, sails into the wall, hits it with the right front tire. And you got to wonder whether that's suspension damage for the UPS car, Bland, who will now just be swallowed by the pack as she went around at the exit of turn 2. Second onboard look, coming off the corner. There's no contact. Jason Anderson was emerging, and then the car ended up going sideways. Right there, steps out from underneath her, and nothing she can do to escape the car, just unraveling at the very fingertips. It becomes such a disastrous situation when you have that go down, and all of a sudden Parker Bland, still on the racetrack, will pick up a few of those stragglers at the back in McCrelly and in Ray Rogers, who have both since have nearly fallen to the back end of the pack to fall a lap down. We saw Rogers did fall a lap down in the first run of the race before that yellow flag came out, and at the time he was the only car a lap astray of the rest of the field. Now that's a very different story. Justin Erb a lap down as we saw him get passed by the field in the front. Brad Fulham, who was involved in that sizable crash to bring out the only yellow of the night, back in 2 laps down in 23rd. Kip Easley, the driver who started on the outside of the front row, he has since disconnected from this race, and so has Warren Kyle Keith, at least in terms of him disconnecting from the pack. Driver who now falls 10 laps down after making a trip down pit road not that long ago, so potentially an unscheduled stop for Warren Kyle Keith. We'll try and gather that story for you as quickly as we can. But for the 24 car, it is not a good sign, and the field is coming up on him quickly, so he needs to make a move, or else it is going to be bye-bye to his dreams and getting back into this group and a chance for the win. Not much action, though, at the front of this field as we get another look at our SKMcars.com race analysis. So it's a similar distance to what we did last season at 200 miles, or 300 miles rather, and 200 laps here in this Peach Cobbler 300 here at Echo Park Speedway. As now the field will get around Warren Kyle Keith, and he'll need the SKM Lucky Dog to get back in line with the rest of the pack. It's 200 laps, but again, like we mentioned, not cut into stages. So right now it would have been done with stage 1. We would have been 15 laps into stage 2. But of course, given the complexion of this field so far, and with this new chase system in line, it's not all about the win and you're in system and, of course, the stage points you can gather throughout the campaign. They decided to axe the idea of stage points this season. Try and carry forward the mindset that if you're at the end of the race in the top 10 or with a solid finish, you'll get all the points for that, and you will not get points mid-race. So everyone keeping their toes collected, and of course keeping their wits about them as we continue to remain single file. Alex Muscarella has remained adamant at making a high line work. He's now picked up Warren Kyle Keith, so the 24 car will not fall out of line of this draft of group, which is a good news for him, because not only will a yellow flag give him a chance to regain his lap and get back on the lead group, but also if he does have enough momentum with everyone in front of him, and possibly those who support him from the back end like this 48 car does, and now there's a bit more of that outside lane coming into fruition with Richard Swavely and maybe just a bit of Matt Baines flirting with the possibility. If this 24 car can get back to the front, if he can pass the race leader, he'll still be on the lead lap. So if a caution does come out, then he'll just settle to the back of the field. He will not have to deal with the wave around situation, so he will be able to pit alongside the rest of the field at the time that they do, and then he'll just fall to the back and be on the lead lap anyway without having to deal with the idea that further cars could fall down a lap, which at the moment is very plausible. Parker Bland, Ray Rogers, their chances spoiled after, of course, we saw that 26 car go around and the rest of the problems that befell them. So as they fall a lap down, it's up to Warren Kyle Keith to get around them, and that could be easier said than done at this juncture of the race. 30 laps from halfway home here in Hampton, Georgia, and once again, the same ensemble is trying to make some work happen at the front from the outside lane. Van Schaik, a top 10 spot. He'll give it away for a shot at making this outside line work, with Sammy Harrell, the GOAT car, right behind him, and James Kunkel just peeking upwards, trying to see if that run is big enough for him to join the party and have a bigger group look at the race lead. Near contact there as Harrell had to back out of the gas before sending the 23 around. And once more, the third time is not the charm for those at the top groove. It has become increasingly difficult for those at the high lane to find any semblance of momentum. And although this track temperature isn't necessarily hot, I mean, this is a place that's known as Hotlanta for its scorching temperatures as NASCAR visits it either in the early spring or through the summer. But tonight, not exactly the case. 80 miles an hour is rather cool for a track temperature. The sun continues to go down here in Georgia, and the winds to the east at about 7 to 8 miles an hour. It has been perfect conditions for higher grip racing as the sun comes down and that track temperature cools. You'll see these cars just a little more dancy around these corners, not entirely because they're losing grip, but because they have the grip and confidence to make moves. So if this racetrack continues to develop, all that rubber being put to the inside lane, if that will assist all those on the high shelf. And this is one of those tracks that really could be in the testing grounds for the oval refresh that has since been further updated with new rubber features on the sim and having rubber build up from the outside of the racetrack and be picked up by the Goodyear Eagles on the speedway. So unlike a Daytona and Talladega where you'll have a bit of rubber here and there from the higher groove right next to the outside wall, the tires don't wear down enough there. So with all that high speed, with all of the banking that helps you, and because the tracks are very large in nature, you don't necessarily have to deal with pit stops that require slapping on a new pair of shoes or a new quartet of shoes on the race car. But here at Echo Park Speedway, like we've talked about, you've got tighter radiuses in the corners. You're going much faster with this draft package. So you will, in turn, have to deal with that phenomenon. We got to look on board with Chuck Stevens in this top 10, trailing behind Jaden Porter in 5th. And you'll have to back out in the corners. The tires wear down more. So overall, the rubber and those marbles will start to build up on the high side of the racetrack. Now, will it become such an issue that the oval refresh will lend itself to high side momentum further in this race? That is a question that is still to be answered as Stevens makes the run on Jaden Porter, and the high side begins to form around him with Warren Kyle Keith and James Kunkel, the two SKM teammates, working in tandem with a Ford behind them and Daniel Holtzcroft. Now Porter looks up there to try and build up some momentum off the final corner. It's remained to be seen whether that becomes a proper issue. We had our first green flag run last about 35 laps, and this one so far stretching at lap number 38. So easily this has become the longest green flag run of the night here from Echo Park Speedway. Top 5 as it stands right now. Stampy in the race leader. He's been in command basically since the word go, getting around Cedric Hunter in the early portions of the race and staying up in his place without any resistance. Stephen Harlow back in the runner-up spot. Garrett Walden has maintained a top 5 throughout tonight's affair. He's back in 3rd. Jesse Whittington in 4th. And finally, there is a bit of movement from those on the top groove. It is starting to come alive with the second place driver in the point standings entering tonight, and the one-time race winner this season in Jaden Porter making a move up top, looking for a top 5 spot. And you think if there isn't a chance to make moves from the inside lane, why not look up to the sky where the limit is, of course, where these drivers have taken themselves to. And so far, nobody in the top 5 has flinched. None of them have looked up to that high lane. None of them are looking for the entryway. The lights come on here at Echo Park Speedway at the right time where Jaden Porter tries to turn the heat on the rest of the top group. And he's got to run. Porter starting this race outside the top 10. And despite that, has been easily working through the field from the bottom, has maintained his pressure point, and now looking to drag back Jesse Whittington, the side draft on the back straightaway, looking to reel back the rest of this top 5. Gains a position back in turn 3. And getting the push from Warren Kyle Keith. He is getting closer to Garrett Walden to put himself back into the podium spot as Steven Stepien looks on, still the race leader. And this is the best we have seen this outside line all night long. And in this conversation of super speedway racing where you don't need just the help, you need the organization, you need the right pushers with you, there's nobody better than Warren Kyle Keith to send you to the front. A driver who knows a way around these super speedways and can very well put himself in contention to win. Back in the regular season finale, was in a very well spot to win that race. Ended up 1/1000th of a second short of the race victory to Lawson Peel at the stripe in the grass. But Keith can put himself there. And Jaden Porter sees the run from Keith, takes the high side again. Stephen Harlow takes notice. He makes the move up. Garrett Walden peeks underneath, and Porter trying it all by himself to get around the outside of Garrett Walden. He's got the quarter panel, doesn't have the help coming back to turn one, and the inside lane prevails at least momentarily. But here comes the group. Alex Muscarella is sideways in turn one, and he saves it. What a save by Muscarella. And will stay green for now. But Alex Muscarella, with a race-saving save, keeps himself in line. And although he drops all the way back to 15th, he will keep a clean race car and will stay green for now. Here's the second look. In line on the bottom, Charles Van Schaik behind him entering turn one. And again, the most active that we have seen both lines all night long. And just a bit of contact for Van Schaik sends him out of line. Tallies on the apron, keeps the car on the transition. What a save. That is not an easy save to make at 185 miles an hour here at Echo Park Speedway in this super speedway format. But he does it anyway. And although the track position is lost with 18 laps before halfway, Alex Muscarella will say that he will get to fight on for another lap. As Jaden Porter continues to hold faith in what has been the most formed outside charge we have seen thus far at lap 83 of tonight's affair, and what is now the longest green flag run of the night at 46 laps. Porter trying to lead his 108th lap of the season so far after dominating his first affair at the Monster Mile at Dover, a track that he very well keeps close to heart, and those concrete surfaces that he enjoys very much with these next-gen cars on iRacing. Took advantage then, led a ton of laps, over 100 at that point, and it was pure domination from Porter. And so far this season, although it hasn't been exact domination on all phases of the game, Las Vegas was a showing of how fast he could be. Warren Kyle Keith right behind him, just tailing off the end of the race car. Fishtailing on the front straightaway to turn one. But Porter looking to get back to the top spot and lead a few super speedway laps. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, trying to go back-to-back for the KBueno Racing team. Stephen Maggio led 112 last season to win here in a campaign in which he won several races that season, and where BBR really made themselves as a proper contender. And Porter getting shaped up as well for the race on Wednesday night, part of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs, which will kick off in Las Vegas on Wednesday night. And a very different style of racing to here at Echo Park Speedway, but with that experience he carried from a pretty long race here in the second event of the season, is going to have a chance to put himself back in victory lane as Warren Kyle Keith, another big-time moment for the St. Augustine native right behind Porter. That will kill the momentum from the high side charge for now. Porter ducks it back in line. Charles Stevens and Timothy Stubblefield wave back inside the top 10. And Warren Kyle Keith, like we mentioned with Alex Muscarella, that is a save that is not easy to make. We mentioned the tires wearing. We mentioned the loose moments. Watch this. Turn 3. That is danger. Flirting with it at the exit of the corner. And Keith holds on to the race car. We will stay under the green flag for now in our longest run, shaping up. 13 to go, and now 12 until the official halfway mark here from Hampton, Georgia. So right now, it is still Steven Stepien at the head of this field as we continue rolling through our green flag run. And so far, much of it single file as the sun continues to set here from Hotlanta. Don't go anywhere. We'll have more coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series here from the Echo Park Speedway in just a few moments.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
These Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat. There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market. Only at Sunoco.
And back live from the virtual Echo Park Speedway, we continue race number 4 of the Season 2 Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, and our second yellow flag comes out to break up the longest run of the night at 56 laps. So 7 laps before halfway, we end up in our second yellow flag of the night. And it was trouble on the back straightaway. As we'll get the second look here, the field was running mostly double file. Jaden Porter and company running in the group. And it seems as though there was trouble all the way in the back. But we can't quite pinpoint exactly who that might have been at the back of this field. But it may have been Brad Fulham, and it is. So the Canadian going sideways off turn 2. That was the pack all the way to the back. Brandon Banks leading that group. And although they did a great job at not getting put a lap down, Brad Fulham involved in now both of the incidents tonight from Echo Park Speedway. So that will leave a chance for everyone to visit pit road after the longest run on the set of tires. And Warren Kyle Keith, who has spent a good amount of this race trying to get back in line. He is 10 laps down, so will not have a chance to get back on the lead lap. But the rest of the field will come in behind Stepien, who has dominated so far tonight, although no one has really given him a shot from the outside lane. He's had Stephen Harlow and Garrett Walden in help that entire run. Jaden Porter had been trying to make something work on the high side with Keith and a few aforementioned drivers of Kunkel. And even a bit of Kevin Roy. But now everyone coming down pit road with a chance to refresh, get their 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles, get the shoes back on the race car, and be back and going. Question is, are there any 2-tire takers? The answer is no. Consensus 4-tire call, and the running order stays the same, although Jesse Whittington grabs ahead of 4. Jaden Porter. Stales in the top 5th, top 5, and Charles Stevens back in P6. So let's get a word with one of the drivers inside the top 5 right now, and we're joined now by Jesse Whittington, driver of his number 94, inside the top group. Jesse, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, Jesse. Well, first of all, I want to say welcome back to the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. Been a while since we've talked to you. It's been probably since the Sunoco Cup Series days that we have spoken, but you've had a good race car so far tonight. It's rather single file at the front. What have you noticed here over the first few runs of this race as we approach halfway from your eye?
top line can generate runs, but fizzles apart relatively quick. You know, I've just been trying to focus on keeping the car clean and keep some track position. And you know, I don't know what else to say. Like I haven't really noticed too much craziness, but I mean, clearly there's been a little bit because we've had 2 cautions. So
it's been about a lot about little activity over the course of this race. You've been a part of that single file group at the front. Is that just the mindset until maybe the last part of this race, maybe 20 laps, where it's not go time until that point and you just want to stay single file?
yeah, and I mean, I've talked with my teammates. I got Charles and Garrett right here around me, and we've kind of talked about making some moves, trying to get some laps led, but we're also like trying to play it smart and make it to the finish. So that's the first priority, because you know, we can't if you can't make it to the finish, you don't have a shot at the win. So you know, that's just kind of where we're at right now. Just play it smart, make it to the finish.
Well, that's a true statement if I've ever heard one, Jesse. You got to be up front to finish. You got to have a car to finish. And so far, that's been the plan inside the top 5. And ready for the restart, Jesse. Best of luck.
Yep, thank you. You have a great rest of your night, man.
Jesse Whittington, a part of that Cypress Academy team with Chuck Stevens and the likes of Garrett Walden, a rookie driver, and some of the others that have been around this group for a little bit. But some of them, of course, like Whittington, making his first few runs here with this new 2026 look of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. Whittington bobbles out of line off the push from his teammate on the restart. Stephen Harlow gets nudged out. 3 wide for third to turn 1. And what a shaky restart from those in the second line. Walden pulls ahead. Stepien continues in the lead. Jaden Porter gets to a race-high third. And James Kunkel has been slowly progressing through this field, now for the first time in the top 5. And now, are there any moves? Whittington, Stevens, and Swavely try to hold on to the top for now, but they continue to run back. And it's only 1, 2, 3 cars on the high lane as everyone maintains their composure on the bottom. And it was all from a push, maybe early on, from Chuck Stevens to the back bumper of Whittington. Harlow didn't go exactly when he needed to, and then those cars just bobbled. That 6th machine has moved way out of line, and Harlow now to a worse position we've seen him in all night long, all the way back in 21st, as he'll come down pit road this time by, as his chance for the win might have just been squandered in the very few seconds going up to the gears on the restart. You just see a bit of that disappointment on his face. He did not want to see that race turn the way it did. He's going to go a lap down from the field, curling around turn 4 now. He'll visit pit lane. And as Steven Stepien continues to lead, Stephen Harlow without Ross tonight on the racetrack, sort of almost fending for himself a little bit alongside his teammate Brad Fulham. But he will take a bit of service. His car remains on the speedway, although he will fall a lap behind the leaders as it stands right as we cross the halfway mark here from Echo Park Speedway. And again, just a little bit of a bobble. That's all it took for Harlow to move up high and have those 2 cars in Whittington and company move to the inside of the racetrack. But as we've seen, and even like Whittington mentioned before we went green, that high side has had chances at times, but has not been formed enough, and nor has had enough speed to carry and get around the top 2. Closest it's been, it's 4th place, and that was with Jaden Porter in our last run of the race. So that leaves Steven Stepien up at the front. Jaden Porter gauging some interest, gauging the clean air on the front end of the Chevrolet, but goes back in line with enough space to spare. James Kunkel, Matt Baynes inside the top 5. And much like Iowa, this has really become a race of outlasting the competition. Well, Mayans with a big-time block on Van Schaik in turn 1. It's been all about keeping your track position when you can, and although we have seen some drivers try to experiment with the higher lanes, that really has not been the case so far tonight. Another look at Steven Stepien coming across for his 99th lap led here tonight from the virtual Echo Park Speedway. And like we mentioned earlier on in the show, record of 156 is the one that he set back in Season 1, winning at Gateway. That was his overall best race of the campaign. And although, of course, did make a deep run in the playoffs last season, got eliminated here, so looking for his way back to victory lane. And not only just that, but getting a bit of that sweet redemption here at Echo Park Speedway and having a chance to fulfill some of the things that were left on the table last time we were here. And to think of the chaos that this race brought last season, given that it was not only the semifinal race, but it was the second of a back-to-back super speedway slate that brought us to the end of that round of 8 and deduced the field to 4. So it was really all about more luck than anything. Talladega had huge crashes that Stempien and a few other playoff drivers were involved in. That is exactly what put Stempien behind the 8 ball so much heading into this Echo Park Speedway, with a near must-win coming across for lap lead 101 of the night. But really, this evening has been a pure turnaround in terms of the calmness of the activity and, of course, the rockiness of Stempien's race. It has virtually been stable the entire night. Only gained that one spot to the race lead after starting third, getting good headway on the inside line of row number 1, or row number 2 rather, getting around the 4th place car to start in an easy trip around 1 and 2, and then as Cedric Hunter moved out of line, and then ultimately disconnected from this race, that handed off to the baton to Steven Stempien, if you will, to use some track terms, and then went up at the front and really has not let go of this advantage so far, and chasing toward that record of 156. If he can beat that, the most laps led ever by a single driver in any Droppin the Hammah Cup Series race over the last 2 seasons. So there's Jesse Whittington, his teammate Chuck Stevens behind him, in their efforts to work their way back up through the field. Chuck Stevens ducks back in line. That splits up the Cypress Academy teammates and will leave the DBR Chevrolet of Brandon Banks to deal with what plan he can execute here at this moment of the race. A driver who nearly fell a lap down in the affairs later on, after the first run was complete. After a rather long trip in his pit box, got his car back in tip-top shape, had to straggle with some of the leftover cars at the back of the field, and with that yellow flag has seemingly come back into play. The South Carolina driver, one of the few representatives of Drinkin' Bros Racing alongside Kip Easley, as Lawson Peel, the multi-time winner and championship contender last campaign, has decided not to re-emerge in DTH Cup competition for 26 and has decided not to rejoin the series. And a part of what are pretty large moves in the grand scale of things. When you think of this series, as young as it is not entirely just the history of one season. We like to consider it the history of this season, just the first campaign and then the first 3 races up until now, which has continued to build the resume week by week. However, you go back to Sunoco Cup Series history, and these are drivers who have been around for years on the sim with the same drivers in competition every single Sunday. And for a driver like Lawson Peel, who was a multi-time champion, dominated the last 3 seasons of Sunoco Cup action, winning the title 3 times in a row, and then going to the championship for last season and didn't win it there. For him to be leaving is a big shock. For Zachary Hall in his opening campaign to have done what he did, winless until the very last race, winning at Homestead of Miami and securing the title in front of his teammate Cedric Hunter in what was a storybook ending to the season, to hoist the title at the end. You see him also leave the grid for 2026, only leaving his fellow good friend and teammate Cedric Hunter in the mix. And while Hunter continues to be a contender and probably will be a title contender for the rest of the season, you know, to see Zachary Hall not at least come back to attempt and defend his crown is a very big shock to a lot of people that are tuned into this series. There goes the field around Stephen Harlow, and the sights of him at the front row on the restart are now days gone by as Jaden Porter, big run off of turn 4. Here comes the outside lane. James Kunkel has the help to give the 82 car, and the Ally Chevrolet has moved his way to the runner-up spot. Battle for the lead in turn 1. First time we have seen this outside lane have a run to the race leader. And it's up to whether Steven Stempien can respond at the exit of turn 4. He's got a solid push from Walden. That gives him the high line advantage so far. The high line waves back. Kunkel again a chance to push. And on the fresher tires now, Jaden Porter is looking for any advantage he can get, taking that risk going up there. He side drafts Matt Baines. He'll fall back in line, and he won't have a chance to get back to Garrett Walden. So another opportunity squandered by those on that high lane. The inside will have the advantage. Matt Baines with a half block. He'll push Jaden Porter back. Will he look up high? Yes, he will, and he commits. Now he's in the middle. He waves through the quad oval. He slithers through the straightaway. Back to turn one. Matt Baines, a new addition to the party, back in the top 3. And with 87 to go next time by, the answer is, can the top have any momentum to take the lead? It has not been the case all race long, but this is the most occupied we have seen that high lane. Jesse Whittington is still there. And Matt Baines now the new line leader. Trying to not only bring hope to any of those to take the race lead and lead some laps here at Echo Park and take that crown away from Stempien, who has ripped it apart from the rest of the field tonight. And even a bit of hope for Stephen Harlow, the Vermont native, a chance to unlap himself as he remains in touch with the pack that is now the largest we have seen throughout this race without any separation to follow. Matt Baines another run. Falls back in line, and here they come once again, the dynamic duo of Harrell and Van Schaik back in line, nose to tail. Harrell's got the nose ahead. He'll try to surge on Walden down the main straightaway to turn 3, nudges in. Daniel Holdcroft takes place. He'll step into the top 3 for the first time tonight. And despite the numbers on the high shelf, they have still not beaten the top 2. 85 to go this time. And there's contact. Side by side down the back straightaway. That was Alex Muscarella who got hit by Harrell as he got loose exiting turn 2. Van Schaik made a move 3 wide at the bottom and will stay green, but a scare off the second corner. Here's the second look. What a move. And how did they save that? I have no idea. Sammy Harrell just nearly getting into the quarter panel of Alex Muscarella. The speed carried them afloat, and that could have easily been disaster in the matter of a millisecond. But we stay green, and the scare has dissipated any of the momentum from the high lane, although Van Schaik will give it another shot. And oh man, that was near catastrophe for Alex Muscarella and Sammy Harrell running at the moment. So far, their best races of the night. And their best runs of the night have come right here. Muscarella in a race high 4th. Van Schaik and Harrell still emerging in the top 10, but floated into the top 5 for the first time. And now they will have to deal with the same fate that every single other outside line has had to deal with. And that is, of course, making sure they can stay afloat. They've only been able to get up to 3rd. Jaden Porter in a chance to take the points lead tonight from Echo Park, although Brandon Banks is not too far behind. That is a gap still worthy of note. With a few positions in between, Brandon Banks running 15th, Jaden Porter falling back to 13th, and just floating around the top 12. And so again, 4 points separating those two drivers with all top 10s in 2026. If this is the first race where they get nudged out of the top 10, there could be either a new contender behind them, or there very well could be Jaden Porter taking away the points lead now that he's got a bit of distance to Brandon Banks. Big checkup on the high side will move these drivers back just a bit, and the field fans out as they come back to turn 1. Daniel Holdcroft had to bobble out of line, had the nose damage that slowed him down to the exit of 1. And now Daniel Holdcroft falls back in line, and Timothy Stubblefield won in overtime to open up 2025. That to this day is still his only career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory. And Stubblefield now in contention to win for the first time tonight, although there's still a long way to go. Stubblefield in the 9 machine is right where he wants to be. So it's Stempien, Walden, Muscarella, Stubblefield, and Holdcroft the top 5. As Van Schijk gets nudged out of the way. Here comes Harrell, Bobble in 4. Now they're nearly 3 wide. They are 3 wide. Here comes Brandon Banks through the middle. And Harrell doing all he can to damage control back to turn 1. And Van Schijk's run is squished. And all of that momentum gone. Jaden Porter again, trying his luck. On the high side, James Kunkel meets him at the summit. And the two will attempt to work back together. Side drafting on Chuck Stevens. Down the main straightaway. And Parker Bland, what a comeback for Parker Bland. Was nose first into the inside wall. But Bland found a way back, repaired some of her race car. And this UPS Ford Mustang Dark Horse is back in contention to try and win this race. As some of those SKM numbers continue to separate, although they have made forward progress. Richard Swavely leading the outside charge. Now Sammy Harrell will take another step up the lane and try to help them again. But James Kunkel, with the race that he has developed as the lights have come on, it looks like his intensity is ramped up and his track position has also gone up as well. For the 12 car, that Georgia Bulldogs progressive Ford Mustang. And Jesse Whittington, who was on the outside of the second row, coming to the green flag restart, had to deal with the bobble from Stephen Harlow, the 3 wide that ensues, and then just the overall lack of progression that the outside lane has kept up all race long, just due to many a different factor. Whittington fell back to the top 15. He rallied himself back in line, and with his teammate Chuck Stevens right behind him to give any sort of assistance should they make a move from the high lane, they will try to at least keep their track position in line. But like he told us, not a lot of activity at the front. That's basically what we've seen. That's been the diary so far. It hasn't necessarily been a fireworks show here at Echo Park Speedway. And knowing that this is a super speedway, you think quite the opposite. We've had plenty of close calls. We've had the 2 cautions to bring out the halts in the action today in the sim. 2 of those involving Brad Fulham, and one of them involving several other cars like Justin Erb, who since then has fallen to 14 laps down and 24th. And Brad Fulham, who was involved in both accidents, a single car spin to bring out the most recent yellow off turn 2, is now 38 laps down and counting. He is the second DNF tonight from Echo Park. Cedric Hunter was the first after pitting from the lead way early on in the affair, and he is 117 laps down as of the moment. So there's 73 laps to go. And we saw the longest green flag run kick in at 56 laps. Our first was 35, our second 56. And then now you ask the question, well, if there are no yellow flags for the end of this race, then when do the drivers come down pit road? Is green flag strategy going to matter here more than it is at any other point in this race, as James Kunkel again takes the high side and gets a large run here on Stubblefield in the battle for 4th. If it does come down to an opportunity at drivers separating themselves from the field under green flag circumstance, then you think to yourself, well, how do the drivers get down together and what will that strategy play be? We've seen in the super speedways how that really becomes a battle of who can gain the track position first and how much draft you can carry with you at the exit of pit road, because that idea still remains the same, that if you come out with a group, you will be at least assured a bit of momentum when you cycle back. If you leave by yourself, if there are pit road penalties, if you have a crash entering pit road, if there is any sort of difference that makes you separate from the driver you're working with in the run before the pit stop and separates you enough to where you cannot get back and draft with each other, that is only further lost time, and then of course further negativity in the rest of the race if there are no yellows. And we've seen plenty of drivers go a lap down as a result. I mean, there was a short pit from Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter that in the long run here last season didn't work out in their favor. They needed a yellow flag to get back on the lead lap. They had multiple yellows that brought their chance of the win back in play. Zachary Hall ended up in one of the game-sealing yellows to bring out overtime. And then in that final restart where Cedric Hunter had weaved his way to the front and then made good use of it by having Steven Maggio be pressured in the final lap and giving him a run for his money. Although he didn't come up away successful, Hunter finished second in that race. Again, it all started because they had the yellows to help them after a short pit. And so you ask if anyone else tries to propose that same scenario here tonight, or whether it's a lost cause given the way that passing has become so difficult to have here unless somebody makes a mistake or unless somebody bobbles from that outside lane. James Kunkel still remains hope that he can be the proposing driver to take the lead just by the high line alone. As Sammy Hero makes a move underneath, Timothy Stubblefield has hope that the outside can give him a chance. James Kunkel goes back to the inside, and now Jesse Whittington will pick the 9 car up. And just like that, same number of cars, now adding 1. Big move up top, swinging up high is Harold. Muscarella nearly gave him a bump out of the way. In third place, as he noses underneath Garrett Walden, trying to sneak his way. Garrett Walden is loose. He'll try to save it inside of the racetrack. And Garrett Walden holds on to the race car, but at the cost of all of that track position. And the driver running second all night long gets the air pushed on the spoiler, and Alex Muscarella gets right into line with his teammate in the race lead. And here's the second look. We've seen air being played with all night long tonight. And this is ultimately what it came down to. Alex Muscarella making a bobbing and weaving move to the inside. Walden gets the apron. Walden gets loose. And despite the bumps on the inside getting him out of shape, Walden does a phenomenal job to keep the car from the inside wall. And most importantly, will keep us clean and green with 65 laps to go at the stripe. And Garrett Walden is nearly back a full lap in 20th place in turn 3. And that is heartbreaking for Walden. He was the leading group and a part of that for so long, the leading car of that Cypress Academy trio tonight with Chuck Stevens and with Jesse Whittington, all of them having their fair share of chances at the front. But none have been as close as Garrett Walden, who maintained second practically this entire race. And as the lights have come on, the intensity in the back has kept alive, but no one still has been able to make a nudge to the front. James Kunkel really the only driver to do that forward progression. And although it's been slow, it's like the tortoise and the hare. It's slow and steady, and it may win the race tonight. And we have seen here at Echo Park Speedway, James Kunkel in the original reconfig change on iRacing to this new Super Speedway package won a Sunoco Cup Series race here so long ago. And a very controversial finish at the end and an overtime crash on the white flag lap. But James Kunkel was right there in a place to win that race back when he drove the number 3 in a Chevrolet. Now all these years later, in a Ford Mustang, and for this SKM group, looking to give them their first win of the season. And stays back in third with a chance at green flag pit stops potentially looming in the cards. And also one thing we have not brought up here at Echo Park Speedway, the entry to pit road. We saw it just a bit earlier in the race with Cedric Hunter when he came in, and the same with Stephen Harlow when he made his unscheduled stop after nudging out of line from the front straightaway, is that you don't get onto the front straightaway pit lane from turn 4. Back when this was the mile-and-a-half racetrack, and even in the early configurations of the Super Speedway, you could slow down in the middle of 3 and 4, hop on the brakes, get down to pit road speed limit, get under that red and white line at the bottom, and then come in on pit road. Now, you'll see it when we come back around to turn 3, is that there is a yellow line. That is now the official pit road entry mark, just like it is in real life. So NASCAR tried to make it just a bit safer for those that are blending in traffic and those that are making that slow down stop to pit road. And that difference in speed can be very dangerous in the Super Speedway package. So there's the yellow line and a bunch of other lines that progressively make their way on the apron. That is the separator from the pit road entry lane to the racetrack. So you've got to enter in turn 3, slow down to enough speed to carry on the apron, continue to run through, then get down to pit road speed limit when you make your way across turn 4. And only then can you make your way to pit road and be all right. So if that is the play at the end of this race for the win, It's going to be about, of course, how many drivers come in together and how chaotic can it get if we end up with a green flag stop in the cards. As the back half of this field is starting to move around just a bit more. There's Charles Van Schaik, Brandon Banks, Ray Rogers battle for 10th back to turn 1. Ray Rogers at one point a lap down in this race. And much like Parker Bland facing early troubles tonight, but has since rallied back. The yellows have come out in the right places and the right times. And one of the Sunoco Cup Series legends from the early years in 2020 and 2021 will be right in the thick of this pack that has built up single file. And now the 2 points leaders have found themselves nose to tail. Jaden Porter having a bit of that help from Brandon Banks in that DBR Chevrolet behind him. We got the onboard look from Porter. So again, we mentioned the fact that these two could be the early decider after tonight on who has the points lead. Once this checkered flag comes out, right now advantage Porter, but still a long way to go. 56 laps to go at the stripe. And Brandon Banks, although it is a 4-point swing between those two, Banks could easily finish still behind Porter and have a chance at being still the points lead holder by the time this is all said and done. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, two having a chance to continue that top 10 streak that they have built up in the first 3 races of the campaign. Of course, both of them winners this season at the Iowa Speedway and the Daytona International Speedway, respectively. And they currently patrol the outside lane that is led just a bit by Sammy Harrell in that gold and black GOAT Toyota Camry that has been flailing across the Seco Park Speedway with any opportunity to move up front as his call to go up. And they'll try and side draft Daniel Holdcroft down the main straightaway off of turn 4. And with 55 laps to go, Steven Stempien continues to stay out ahead. What a dominant night it has been for him. And again, inching closer to that lead lap record of 156 laps set by him back in 2025 at Gateway. And crossing the line for lap lead 144. As there is Harrow again. Working well with Porter. The two worked in tandem the last time they ran up the high lane. And so far, no dice still. They'll get around the lap car and Garrett Walden. This will shake things up just a little bit. Walden runs the inside lane. So for the first time, the leaders have to shoot up high. Daniel Holdcroft will have a chance to push Walden back to the front. James Kunkel will clear entering turn 1. And what could have been a pivotal moment for those on the bottom has now become a very easy, quick around go. Garrett Walden now trapped in the pack. And now he'll spin around Sammy Harrell to the inside of the racetrack. The two will slam into the inside wall. And will the yellow come out as a result? Now the yellow flies with 53 laps to go. And it's the driver that has been trying to lead the outside for the entire night. And Sammy Harrell getting turned nose first into the wall. Take a look at how it all unfolded. Walden running behind, nudges from the inside. And Harrell just comes down, trying to clear the 43 car, pancaking into the wall as Walden, his night has gone from bad to worse. And Sammy Harrell getting turned around at the exit of the corner now brings us our most pivotal caution with 52 laps to go. Here's the onboard look. That's a hard hit. That is going to be plenty of repairs needed for car number 42. As the whole field comes in, Harrell at the back of the field. And here comes the field in turns 3 and 4 to visit pit road for what could be the final time tonight. And the idea of long green flag pit stops, Well, now that's thrown out the window with 52 to go. Again, our longest run was 56. The drivers made it all the way on a set of tires and fuel. And now is where they'll have to visit in with a money stop on the way. Will the drivers take 2 fresh tires or 4? It's going to be a matter of case. Steven Stepien has that further up pit stall. And who comes out first? Jacks are up, both sides for Stepien. Quick exit for Alex Muscarella, looking for the lead as they come to the line. But Stepien will have the nose ahead. Jaden Porter gets around James Kunkel, so he'll take away third on a quicker pit stop at 14.9 seconds, but just half a second faster than Kunkel was in an exit. And with 50 to go, it is now a DTH 1-2. BBR running third, SKM running fourth, and Drinkin' Bros Racing running top 5 with Brandon Banks. So the 2 points leaders in first and second, separated by just 4 coming into this race this evening. Jaden Porter just about thought he would have had the points lead after Iowa running in the runner-up spot to the winner, Cedric Hunter, but that was not the case as Banks came away with the top 10. Their consistency alone has kept them just right on par with each other the entire time. And now it's about who's going to hit the best game at the end of this segment. 50 to go once we come across the start-finish line and wave around cars. SKM Lucky Dog to Christian McCrelly and Garrett Walden. Those two will now regain their laps back. There's Walden on pit road. Christian McCrelly, the Italian, may get his lap back here as he comes around 3 and 4. But that will, of course, settle down the field and bring us possibly the most influential restart of the race, and what might be the most consequential for Alex Muscarella, as he will take charge of what is the lead of the outside lane. Now, that has not proven to be effective every single restart tonight, but the main difference here between this one and the rest of the other restarts is that the front two are teammates. So communication between the front running two could either get them single file on the bottom as quickly as possible entering turn 1, or if Alex Muscarella has a good enough run to use, if he can tally up the high side lane and keep them at bay. James Kunkel, who has been probably one of the biggest movers tonight in the draft alone, has used the inside line, the outside to his advantage at moments in this race. And the 12 car, who started back in 16th, now has a chance to reach the checkered flag and become our 4th different winner of the season. Jaden Porter inside looking for win number 2. Same deal for Brandon Banks running inside of the 3rd row. And Daniel Holtcroft, still with a bit of front-end nose damage, is surviving well in the draft. And he'll round out the top 5, now top 6 at the exit of row number 3. So let's do it once more. 49 to go through the Echo Park Automotive Restart Zone. Will Stepien and Muscarella work together? It looks like Stepien has the edge, and he does. Porter has the nose ahead as they go to turn 1, and Stepien in control through the corner. And so far, so good. Muscarella left in the dust. Top 5 is clear. Top 5 running single file as they come off turn 4, 48 left. And it's Stepien, Porter, and Banks nudging back to turn 1. And there is no pressure behind the Methuen, Massachusetts native of Steven Stepien. Now past his record with 6 more laps if he can do it. Jaden Porter all over the rear bumper. Can he make a move in 1? He'll stay back for now. And the idea rests, do you take the risk? We have not seen any one of those 2nd, 3rd, 4th place drivers make a run up high, take it upstairs, and try and beat the race leader on domination in numbers alone. But does that change in this final segment? As Stepien in front, Porter second, Banks third, Stevens fourth, and Parker Bland looking for her best run of the 2026 season inside the top 5, and James Kunkel in no man's land, just hanging by a thread in this top 10. How the race has turned around for Kunkel, and all it took was one restart for the outside to fall in the same pit they've been pretty much rummaging in all season at these super speedway races, and especially here at Atlanta. Alex Muscarella stops the bleeding. He ends up in 7th. And the run just continues. Jason Anderson trying to help James Kunkel find space. And he gets right in between Jesse Whittington in the 94 and the 72, the bright purple Chevrolet of Matt Baines. At the front, all Chevrolets inside the top 4. And the only Ford in the top 5, of course, is that Bland UPS car that runs right in front of the Daytona winner from last season in Timothy Stubblefield. And the field will continue single file as it has been for a grand majority of this race. That's sort of been hard to say, understanding what Atlanta and the Echo Park Speedway in this super speedway configuration has brought us before, but the draft has not been there. The track position has mattered much more than it ever has before. And whoever has command of the bottom, as long as you've got organization and enough numbers to work with, you don't really have much to worry about, especially if you're in the top 2 spots. Third has had a proper challenge a couple times, but they haven't really come into fruition as a proper pass that has maintained steadiness. It's more so been just a quick pass before eventually giving up the position again, and before third and fourth can easily regain their stronghold on the rest of the field. And the top 2 that are willing to give the outside a shot remain the 12 and the 72 of Kunkel and Baines. So let's talk just a little bit about the phenomenon that has hit a couple of these drivers. We saw Warren Kyle Keith get sideways from it. Garrett Walden got sideways off of turn 4 because of it. Brad Fulham had been involved in an incident because of what was going on. Several drivers have dealt with what's called aero packing. So in this next-gen aero, this is not entirely limited to the intermediate and short tracks. If a car goes down to the inside, there's enough space where they can get the air off of the rear spoiler of the car. We've seen that already several times tonight, and that has been the result of some of the cautions in this race, or near misses, is that when you get in the corner, cars within a car length behind you gets right on the quarter panel, takes the air off the spoiler, and of course the rear tires go away, the grip ends up falling apart, and you have that sideways moment. Lawson Peel was the victim of it last season in the semifinal before getting into the outside wall and saving the car. Warren Kyle Keith, we were on board with him when it happened, as he got sideways, and several of the near misses, Parker Bland was involved in one of them, spinning into the inside wall because that air comes off when the car behind makes a move, and then all of a sudden you have trouble that befalls you and a car you need to save. So even apart from the overwhelming challenges that have so far dominated the drivers who have taken their chance at the top, then that other factor comes into play. If you get aero packed while upside the racetrack, then that becomes a car that is nearly impossible to handle in the clean air, and then of course a car to save. If you can't save it, then it ultimately becomes a huge issue. James Kunkel hoping that one of these moments can be a breakthrough for him and the rest of the squad that has maintained their faith. And with Garrett Walden maintaining the bottom as a lap car, that may indeed shuffle the momentum up to James Kunkel if he can grab just a bit of that slipstream air. Walden moves out of the way on the apron of the quad oval, and Kunkel will not get his wish. Getting his way to the front, it's Baines, Kunkel that are running front and second. Richard Swavely and Justin Erb that are running behind them. Justin Erb a lap car. Richard Swavely still on the lead lap in 9th. But despite their efforts, it has been hard-pressed to find any momentum and to find a way to the race lead. Jaden Porter makes a move underneath. He tried the shot at the bottom of turn 4. Stepien said no way, gets him out of the way, closes the door, and for the first time, the outside has headway on the outside. Can this be the change that Kunkel needs to take the race lead? He's right on the outside of Porter. He can drag him back in the exit of 4. And he's going to stay within the range to strike on the race leader with 36 laps to go on a daring move by Jaden Porter to take the lead in a last-second ditch off the final corner. And that nearly broke the field apart. Take a look. Porter fakes up high, moves down low, Stepien wiggles, speed is lost, and there goes James Kunkel for the taking, and he is still there. But now it's him and Charles Stevens. Top three is pulled away. 36 to go, turning to 35. And as the pages turn, the aggression ramps up. And Jaden Porter's not going to take no for an answer, running in second place. And Jaden looking for his second victory of the season, his third career, dropping the Hammah Cup Series dub. And although everyone has a far cry mission to beat to Lawson Peel's record that he set last season, he can match himself with Brandon Banks for 3 career DTH Cup Series wins and try and get to the level of his teammate Steven Madja, who also won a few races in this racetrack, in this format last season. But still a long way to go and a lot of work that Jaden Porter needs to implement. Tried that fake move in turn 4, has yet to try it again. Knows that Stepien may expect it off the final corner, and he's going to also need a big run. And he doesn't have that right now. He just has a maintained stay in second place. And while Steven Stepien continues to lead, it has been a career moment for the Massachusetts native, leading lap number 166 tonight. And that is now the new record for most laps led by a single driver in a single DTH Cup Series race, and he's beat it by 10 laps. Field spreads out. That was near contact back there between Stevens and Kunkel. But it's been a historic night for Steven Stepien. The last time he led this many laps, it ended up in a race victory. And for the first time, if Stepien can grab a win at a super speedway, how emotional that would be for a driver who last season had to deal with injury early on in the campaign, forced him to miss a few races at the start, spent his time to heal his foot, and after coming back, was just searching moment after moment for races like these where he could just flat out dominate the competition, and giving himself chances to win has been the real thing that he's been looking for the entire time. And in this final leg, he's going to have to work with everything that he's got in the clean air. And with the draft up in front, James Kunkel trying again. Brandon Banks with a half block as the exit turn 2. But all eyes on trying to get around this 88. So far, unsuccessful. And although Stepien's best average start is 9.8, his average finish clocking in at 16.6. His best finish coming twice at 11th in the March 30th race at Talladega, where he led from the pole, and then that Daytona race to open season 1. Stepien ended up also 11th in that race, but this is the most dominant he's been since really that Daytona affair, and really even a bit of that Talladega run, where he led in front of Stephen Harlow before spinning at the exit of turn 4. Now we're going to run 3 wide. Matt Baines taking a peek underneath and ducks back out of line. James Kunkel will remain on the outside lead for now, with Baines, Keith, Swavely, Kevin Roy, and Justin Erb at the back. Alex Muscarella just sort of trailing, indecisive on whether he wants to stay with the inside group or not. But they've maintained pressure to stay within the top 5, but they have not broken past the ceiling. So far has been stopped at Brandon Banks' 5 car and the rest of the field ahead of them. So a good look at what's going on at the front of this field. Good run off of turn 4. Matt Bain's going to give the hefty shove to James Kunkel just to inch him closer, and that's the best run we've seen from them out of turn 4 in a while. Getting the 12 car even with Porter's ally Chevrolet. Can Kunkel have this moment be the breakthrough? Does he have the help from Bain? So far, no. Stepien half blocks down the straightaway. And that one knows Kunkel ahead. He'll take away second at the start-finish line, and now he's got range of the race leader in turn 1. Matt Bains has given Kunkel a life of a push, and now for the first time, Stepien is under fire, and Stepien will get past James Kunkel for the first time with 24 to go at the stripe, is the race leader. And he'll take Matt Bains with him. James Kunkel, new race leader from Echo Park Speedway. And now if you're Steven Stepien, what do you do? What do you think about now? He's got Matt Bains in front of him, and he's going to turn the 72 car around in front of the field. He'll take several others with him. Charles Van Schaik is involved. So is another car up in the front. And the caution waves with 23 laps to go as Matt Bains gets turned around from second. Oh my. James Kunkel getting daylight under the lights here at Echo Park Speedway, and now it is a proper race for the win here tonight. We'll take a second look at how it all unfolded with Stepien running right behind the 72 machine of Matt Bains, and some other cars got involved in the scuffle in turn 3. So here's a look. Bains flushes up high. Stepien keeps himself in line. And again, with that aero packing situation, that's not contact between the two. That is more so just an aerodynamic push that gets the 72 out of shape. And as he comes up from the inside wall to the outside, didn't even hit the inside wall, was down to the apron. Charles Van Schaik, a hard hit. Ray Rogers getting sideways as well. Second look on board with Van Schaik as he had nowhere to go. See that spinning car trying to slow down for the incident. Ray Rogers going sideways right as things were unfolding. Now the field visits pit road that is other than the race leaders. So as James Kunkel makes his way back to pit road, and he'll be the first car out from the top 5, Alex Muscarella, Jaden Porter, and Steven Stepien will assume the top 3. Muscarella wins the race off of pit lane with a 2-tire stop at 9.5 seconds. And just like that, Stepien's short-lived moment away from the lead has come to an end. And he's back up front. What a night it's been for this car right here. Steven Stepien with a chance to win. And this race has gotten very scary very quickly. We're joined by Steven now in the race lead once more. Steven, we saw you in the field come down with about 52 to go. We assume that the fuel is enough to get you guys to the end. But what did you see there in that final run in the first time you were really challenged for the lead in this race?
I think, it's go time. Nobody was really backing off in the corner or save your tire. So until Jaden wanted to get by me. But, I thought I did a pretty good job keeping him behind me and working kind of both lanes. I was trying to work that high line so they could get a run. It worked. I didn't really want to be leading this thing with, 20 to go. So just sitting in a duck, but hopefully I can just manage it. I didn't expect everybody to come down pit right there, get tires, but we'll see. Hopefully this thing holds and we'll go from there.
Do you think that tire difference will make a big change in the way the cars handle, or do you feel that just like any other super speedway race, it's just going to be about track position in the draft?
I think it's going to play a factor. I think me and Jaden are going to be sitting ducks because, the tire wear is crucial, especially at this track. It's not like Daytona or Talladega. You can't just go out there and wear your tires down. So it's going to be tough in the corners, and we'll see. I mean, as long as I can stay out front, maybe keep the track position, force the hand up high, and just hold the bottom, see what happens.
Well, Steven, yeah, indeed. We'll see what happens here in the final 20. Thanks for the time, and best of luck on the restart.
Thanks, buddy.
That's Steven Stepien, so far the commander of this field now. He's been the commander all night long, and he's got to manage a field hungry to take the win away from him inside the final 20. Again, the top two have stayed out on 30-lap old tires. The rest of the field has come in for either 2 or 4. Will this thing change before we know it? Green flag back in the air here from Echo Park Speedway. And the advantage goes to the inside lane. Those are teammates at DTH. Jaden Porter takes no time to go back to the inside. The front 4 clear back in turn 1. Let's see if the tire difference matters here. James Kunkel falls back to 5th. And now it's Richard Swavely with a race-high top 4. We haven't seen him much all night long at the head of this field, and now he's got a shot to the outside. There's Swavely's machine letting the whole field through. As he finds no help, James Kunkel gets one more position. And that inches him just a bit closer. And a chance to do exactly what he did with Matt Baines late in that run before the yellow came out, and he's right where he's been all night long. Back to the high side for a shot. Chuck Stevens forces the nose underneath, so that will be another spot lost for Kunkel. Those are 2 teammates underneath. At Cypress Academy with Jesse Whittington and the 84 machine of Stevens, they'll get underneath. Stubblefield goes through. No cars to help the 12, so he'll fall back in line. And Stepien told us, like he said, didn't want to be in the top spot with 20 laps to go, but he's here anyway. And with 18 to go, he's got a buffer. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the list continues. For those that are single file, James Kunkel has not found life. He is tucked back in. Justin Erb is the only car up there, but they're at the tail end of this pack right now. So it is all a waiting game. Jaden Porter, not afraid to make a move. We saw that earlier on in this race when he tried to fake the 88 car up high and make a move underneath all 4. It didn't result in a clean situation between the two. There definitely was nose-to-tail contact, but they kept it straight. And Jaden Porter probably gained an enemy there for just a slight moment. Stepien had to shut the door. He's done so a couple more times since, but now he's got a teammate behind him in Muscarella that is, of course, just as hungry to win as Stepien is. So it's not like these two will remain nose-to-tail on the final lap of this race. This 48 car will go for the win, but of course the question is, when does he do so? And if we do not have a yellow flag, when is go time between those two? See that look? Stepien the race leader. Muscarella back in the runner-up spot. Jaden Porter 3rd. Chuck Stevens 4th. And Jesse Whittington back in the top 5 after a little while away. Given that one restart midway through the race that practically took him out of contention to be in this top 5. But slowly but surely has made his way back to the front. And he has brought his Cypress Academy teammates. So they are making up for a bit of that lost track position that Garrett Walden held for a good majority of this race before he eventually went sideways on the front straightaway and saved it. And ever since his night has turned around for the worse, he is still on the racetrack, although he is 10 laps down, back inside the top 20. And you don't have those typical contenders on the outside other than Kunkel in this field. Of course, Sammy Harrell is still on the racetrack, but he is 6 laps down in 19th. Charles Van Schuyck got some heavy front-end damage from the last crash off turn 4. And despite that, runs in 12th on the lead lap. But that car is not the same as it was before, and it doesn't have that fire off on the high line that it used to have. So he's just making sure he can stop any hemorrhaging of track position and, of course, the points that'll come with that. 12 laps to go here from Echo Park Speedway, and still this 88 car is putting on a show. 184 laps led, with a chance with this 12 lap to go mark to be at 196, so only 4 laps that Stepien would not have led at the front if he can hold on his track position for now and win this race outright. It's been a career day for the Massachusetts driver, but Muscarella behind him probably isn't going to give him an easy time to the win, and neither is that third place runner in Jaden Porter. He is testing the waters up there for a chance at some possible support. If Chuck Stevens, if Jesse Whittington, if Timothy Stubblefield, or if anyone else can offer support to the Allied Chevrolet in this moment. But as he's tested, it's cold. Frozen waters at the top. And so far, just calm seas at the inside. And you got to think for Muscarella, when is this moment to strike? He has done all that he can to put himself in this position now. He's had a fast race car at times this season. Las Vegas was an early indicator that he would be a contender for the win. And then all of a sudden got nudged out of line in turn 1 by Matt Baines. And his race easily became one more of survival rather than pushing up to the front. And Muscarella trying to grab his best super speedway finish since 8th in mid-July of 2025. And that was the visit to the Talladega Superspeedway back in Season 1. Finished the opening Daytona race in 20th after rolling off inside the top 10. And what a night it's been for this Lowe's Chevrolet car to grab all the positions when he needed to, be aggressive when he needed to as well. Was one of those early proposers of, hey, let's try the outside lane. It worked a couple times. Plenty of times it didn't, but he kept his head in the game. And Droppin the Hammah looking for a 1-2 effort, regardless of the order, if they can pull it off. With 7 laps to go at the stripe next time by, it's Stepien, Muscarella, Porter, Stevens, and Whittington, top 5. Stubblefield runs in 6th. Ray Rogers back in 7th with his best run of the night in play. Matt Baines on the outside running in 8th. Parker Bland still top 10 in 9th. And Brandon Banks, the points leader, entering tonight's race. He's in a sea of cars with Walden, Van Schijk, Easley, and a couple other drivers inside the top 10. And of course, that could be a big-time difference in the battle for the points lead. It's 4 points between those two. And if it is a 3rd versus a 10th or worse for Brandon Banks, that could mean this 82 car has control of the field coming into this race and coming into the next race at North Wilkesboro. And from there, you can see the tension from behind the wheel in his sim rig, leaning into the corners on the other side. Stepien knows what's at stake. He knows in the final 5, no one is going to give an inch. No one is going to leave space. And this is where the go time button is for plenty of drivers in the top 10. This is where they have to try. If they haven't tried already, Matt Baines is giving a hand outside, looking to hand an olive branch to anyone on the high side. And it's Stepien just looking in the rearview mirror, eyes forward on the line, waiting for these laps to tick down. But you know, when you're in the race lead here at a super speedway, these laps go by like forever. It takes a while to get back around the speedway and have yourself a chance at the win. And Jaden Porter is going to pull off the move here. He's going to stay back with Charles Stevens. They're going to give way. Matt Baines is on the high side, but this is in the attempt to get a big-time run in the final 3. 3 wide in the back. Kip Easley trying to hold on for dear life in the middle. And Richard Swabley steps out. So they'll remain back double file. Matt Baines is not going to give up. He had 2nd before the spill in turn 4. He got damaged then. He got the car repaired. And now he is back in line for a payback. Inside the top 5. On board Luca Baines. Coming down to 2 laps to go. And he's watching up high. If Jaden Porter, if Stevens, if Stubblefield, if any driver will make a move, final 3 miles from the virtual Echo Park Speedway. They're nudging up high. Plenty of drivers making a move. Matt Bain still holding out hope, but he's falling back. And will there be any last gasp from the rest of the field? It's up to this final lap. Alex Muscarella in line. Will he make a move? Final lap from Echo Park Speedway, white flag. Matt Baines, Ray Rogers, they go at it for the top 10. Here comes Porter, looking for some help on the high shelf. Alex Muscarella's in line. Stepien in front. He gets wiggled. He'll move up high. Here comes Jaden Porter. One last try in turn 3. Muscarella will play the teamwork. He'll keep Jaden Porter at bay. And off of the final corner, Steven Stepien is going to dominate at Echo Park, winning his second career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series race. And just like last season's effort at Worldwide Technology, he had to lead a ton of laps to do it. Winner for the second time, winner for the first time at Echo Park Speedway, and most importantly, he got his lick back from last season. Led 15, crashed early, lost a shot at the championship round, and now he's got a momentum-boosting win. And for the second time in his Droppin' the Hammah Cup career, Steven Stepien is in Droppin' the Hammah victory lane. And what a moment for Stepien. Told us the emotions of last season and has told us on many occasions, either late season 1, off season, entering this campaign, that he's wanted to win badly. He has wanted a moment like this badly. And he's now been fed with his second victory in his career, his first of season 2. And now becomes the 4th different winner in the first 4 this season. We have yet to see anyone make a repeat effort in 2026. And the parity continues. Let's get a look at that final lap with Steven Stepien and his teammate Alex Muscarella. And it became more about the friendship than it became more about the individuality. Jaden Porter, that third car in line. He goes up high. He spent multiple laps trying to get a big run. Stevens doesn't go with him. And Alex Muscarella says, no, you're not getting by. I'm not letting you through by any means. He gives the gap to Stepien. Porter goes around. Muscarella crashes. Stubblefield somehow comes across the line second. And Ray Rogers with his first podium of the season. And it comes tonight in a frenetic final lap. After it is all said and done, as Steven Stepien grabs the win at the end of tonight's race. So after it all, let's get a look at the unofficial race results here from Echo Park Speedway, where it is Steven Stepien, the race leader, and the race winner, leading over 160 laps en route to the win, his second career dub, and the most dominant effort we have seen by a driver in a single Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series race in series history. Timothy Stubblefield ending up the winner at Daytona in Season 1. He's now with his best finish of Season 2 in second place. Stubblefield, Ray Rogers in third with his best finish of the season as well. We'll get to talk to all 3 of them before we close out our coverage tonight. Parker Bland recovers nicely after a early race spin off of turn 2 to recover to 4th. Chuck Stevens, consistent all night long, and it's a top 5 where he lands, a top 10 streak that continues into this race and out of Atlanta. Jesse Whittington had the lead and had a shot at the win just a little bit before, but steps in the top 6 at the end. Brandon Banks just barely edges out Jaden Porter in the final lap after the 82 car went for a spill. So the the fight for the points lead is still very much intact after this one is done. 9th place goes to James Kunkel, and Charles Van Schijk recovers after crashing off of turn 4 for a top 10 effort. Matt Baynes ends up in 11th, Richard Swaley back in 12th. 13th will go to Daniel Holtcroft in his number 4 machine. Alex Muscarella crashing on the final lap after being 2nd place. He will round out the top 15 alongside Casey Knighton. Christian McCrelly ends up the first car a lap down in 16th. Kevin Roy in 17th. Stephen Harlow had an early end to this race after getting out of line on a restart and then just falling a lap down and coming down pit road. He's in P18. Sammy Harrell in 19th after a crash. And Garrett Walden, you got to feel for both Harrell and Walden the way their races ended in 2 different ways, but on very much a sour note as they came to the checkered flag. Gordon Kyle Keith the same way, 11 laps down in 21st. Kip Easley back in 22nd. Justin Irvin 23rd. Jason Anderson, Brad Fulham, and Cedric Hunter round out the 26-car field after this race from Echo Park Speedway and the Peach Cobbler 300. Well, let's join Steven Stepien in Droppin the Hammah victory lane for the 2nd time in his career. Steven, you told me you didn't want to be out in front with 23 laps to go. You end up out front, and it seems like it is all a cakewalk from there. You get your teammate behind you on the restart, and although there were a few moments of pressure, things ended up just as steady as it was all race. You dominate tonight's action. How satisfying is it to get your sweet revenge here at Echo Park and win tonight?
It's great, man. Reverse psychology, right? I didn't think, honestly, didn't think the tires were going to hold there, but, I got to give that one to Alex. I told Alex, I was like, buddy, do what you got to do. You're probably going to blow by me pretty easily. Go win. I'm not going to have any hard feelings as long as we don't let Jaden win. That was the mindset there as long as we have a good finish for DTH, but hell of a job pushing me. I mean, he stuck with me as long as he could, and that win to Alex. We work so well at plate tracks and everything, so it's it's a good win. Proud. I don't even why I lead every lap besides 1, 2. I don't know.
That is every lap besides 4. Steven, that's 196. Jeez. And we've talked about it. We kept track of it over the course of the race. And I was in a voice chat with a few other of our KBRN members. We were looking at lap leading records in this series. If you count season 1 and so far season 2, you were the record holder at 156 when you won at Gateway, which was in itself a satisfying victory. You lead all but 4 tonight. You set a brand new record that maybe won't be beat for a long time, maybe ever. How great is that to not only set a record in that sense, but also to have that satisfaction of winning and most importantly, doing it in the way you did it?
It's awesome. I'm, just thrilled to get a win. I'm still just trying to figure out this package. And, last week at Iowa, I had 2 meatballs. I've never had meatballs in the career of iRacing for me. So, still trying to get used to this package and the tire and see how it wears. Hopefully I got it down pat, in the next couple of weeks and see what happens. But I'm happy to get a win early and just build momentum because, you got the chase. You got to build up as much points as you can and see how it goes from there, I think I've as far as laps led, I think Gateway and Sunoco too. I think I had $160, $170 at my rookie season at Gateway. So I don't know, it's something about Gateway too. But sorry for the viewers. I mean, that's a boring race. I just don't understand. To pull the Tony Stewart, Denny Hamlin in me. I just don't understand what they're thinking with the package. I mean, you couldn't really do anything on the high line, and I knew that. I mean, I was on the bottom since the get-go and just never really went anywhere. I mean, the tires wore and couldn't do anything on the high line, so I knew, there was a point in the race I was like, man, I'm probably burning the most gas leading up front, and, should I drop back? Should I, save a little and conserve? And I'm glad I didn't because looking back at it now, at least I was able to lead all the laps and, get the dub. So
it's a win here tonight at Echo Park Speedway. I know the drivers did a tire test to figure out what the tires were going to feel like, what the car was going to feel like at North Wilkesboro. So we'll be there next Sunday. What are the opening thoughts about the visit to North Wilkesboro Speedway, and most importantly, the new refreshed, repaved version of that track?
So actually making a change.
Okay.
Spoiler. We're probably not going to Wilkesboro in effort to put on a good show, because we didn't think it would put on a good show. Me and Warren ran a lot of laps last night, and we're probably going to be doing Kentucky or Gateway or a road course. It's going to be announced tomorrow what we're doing, but we're changing. We're substituting Wilkesboro out. Hopefully we'll have a good show in place of it.
All right, so glad we heard the news from there. The league owner telling us the news as it comes through. So if it's Kentucky Gateway, if it's another track, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure you wouldn't be opposed if we went back to the Worldwide Technology Raceway after a brand new refresh to the track as well. So that will be a new look that we haven't seen yet.
Don't think these guys are going to let me do that.
I'm sure there will be a lot of opposition, a lot of discussions in the boardroom, I'm sure. But Steven, off of this victory tonight from Echo Park Speedway and what lies ahead next week, anyone you want to give a shout out to and thank for tonight's win?
Oh, you guys at KBRN, thank you for the partnership, great partnership we have, and all the admin team. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this season without them. I mean, the help of Warren, Richard, Kunkel, Fulham, Muscarella, it's just, good teamwork, great, exciting season. Been getting messages from the drivers all season long. So shout out to the guys that have joined too, but they're having a blast so far. So hopefully we keep that up. And then obviously everybody at DTH and, sad Ross wasn't here tonight for the Hollows, but me and Steven worked well together for a while. And shout out to Alex, because that was definitely his. He just got caught up wrong time. But hell of a teammate right there. And my pops, my wife, my kids. And hopefully we have a couple more wins this season. Get that bad luck off from last season.
Well, it took you a while to get the first win last season, and I'm sure this is already on a better foot. First win in the first four different winners in 2026. It's been great to watch. Steven, congratulations on the win tonight from Echo Park Speedway in dominating fashion, and looking forward to hearing what the next track will be. I'm sure it'll be a mystery for us until tomorrow, but we hope to hear from that soon, and congratulations on the win once again.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. You guys have a good night, and see you next week.
So that is Steven Stepien off of his second career drop in the Hammah Cup Series victory that comes tonight from the virtual Echo Park Speedway. Well, let's join the Daytona winner from Season 1, and that's Timothy Stubblefield with his best run of this season into P2 after the field basically explodes on that final lap. Timothy, you were inside the top 5 and top 10 for a good majority of this race, especially near that last leg. What did you see there as you were in the heart of seeing that outside line in motion, and then what you saw there on that white flag lap that got you to second?
I know the outside line was not having good runs all night. I know every time I was up there, I was pretty much loose. So I just stay on the bottom of the leg. And that last lap, saw the run. I was like, no. So I just stay low and hope for the best, and they wrecked, and I went high, hope for the best.
So you see this go down, and this race obviously dominated by those on the very bottom. So throughout the event, how did you take shape of where the momentum was going and how you were able to find passes, and despite starting 6, able to just slowly work your way up through the field, given all that movement, especially around the top 10?
I know, like I said earlier, the outside line wasn't doing good, and I know about 30, 40 laps in, it was getting loose there. And I'll just say on the bottom, a lot of guys would just drift up, and that door opened a little bit, and I just squeezed on in there, was spot at a time. But it was kind of hard to pass most of the night.
Well, nonetheless, you were able to make your way forward. You end up with your best finish of Season 2. So how satisfying does that feel to be onto the podium once again and have a bit of that momentum going into the next race, which Steven just told me is going to be a mystery track, and we'll find out that tomorrow.
It feels pretty good. Be back definitely P2. I know the beginning of the season, I missed Daytona. We had a child, and the first, I think, rest of the season, I've been not that good. Been really rusty, so it feels good. Confidence back up, so I hope finish the season out pretty good.
Well, huge congratulations, Tim, to you and the family, and congratulations on the second place here from Echo Park Speedway. It was great to talk to you again, and best of luck in our next race as we figure out what it is tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Timothy Stubblefield, the winner from Daytona last season, second place tonight from Echo Park Speedway, and a great effort at the end. And how wonderful it is that I get to talk to this man after many years covering the Sunoco Cup Series. Ray Rogers ends up with his best finish of 2026 in the top 3. Ray, you were all over the board tonight. You were a lap down at one point. You went back into the top 15. You were around some of the most activity we'd seen in side-by-side action, but you nail the final restart. You put yourself in position through the crash, and you end up third. How did that all come away into a third-place finish, and how great does that feel?
It feels great to finally, just finish a race for the most part. But tonight was hard. I had some connection issues with packet loss, so I had to get out of the pack there, lost a lap, and just had to bide my time, wait for a caution, got it back. And then it was just a matter of just trying to make your way through traffic. Outside wasn't working, so the inside was the preferred, but you just couldn't go nowhere. And just luckily on that last caution, I was able to get like 7th or 8th, somewhere along in there, and to stay there. And luckily there was a wreck that made me, finish out in the top 3.
And you, like a couple other drivers, experimented a bit with that high side, but a lot of it, of course, was spent just hanging out at the bottom. How really dominant did that feel being at the bottom, and how advantageous was it to stay down there, given even some of those attempts for some drivers on the high side to make a move?
It's hard. It's hard to, you couldn't go it was nice running down there, but you just couldn't go nowhere. It was so many checkups. You see the people coming on the outside, you're trying to hold your position. But, just throughout the race, I just noticed the outside lane just wasn't going anywhere. So I really wasn't worried too much about them, getting anywhere on the outside, as long as we stayed on the bottom and stay hooked up on the bottom. But I felt very good on the bottom. You just couldn't do nothing.
Well, regardless, you stayed on the bottom. You kept your heart in it. It was a top 3 at the end of this. Still, obviously, a bit of a question mark as to where we'll go next week, pending Stephen and the admin's review after the test at North Wilkesboro last night. But from what you see in the rest of Season 2, any other tracks that speak out to you and jump across the page as ones that you'll see that maybe are your favorites to visit and ones that you'll have a good chance of winning at?
Most of them I'm pretty confident. Dover's a really good one. Even Wilkesboro, I love Wilkesboro. It's even though it's a short track, but I like those little short tracks. Any of them, I had the potential. That's just how confident I am. But road courses, no. I am not a road course guy at all. But anything else left on the schedule, I feel very confident that I can win.
All right, well, Ray, it's great to talk to you. I've been talking about you and Jesse Whittington, how great it is to talk to some of the Sunoco Cup Series guys again. And after, I started covering the MPI Cup Series at the time in 2021, when you were a part of it, dominating force with the Gen 6 cars. I think it's a great pleasure of mine to talk to you once more, being a part of this brand new DTH Cup Series. So it was great to talk to you, Ray. Congratulations on the top 3 tonight. Well, hopefully we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. It's good to hear about you, man. Thank you.
Ray Rogers and his number 51 Chevrolet closes out the top 3 after tonight's all said and done from this frenetic end to the race, but a largely dominated one by Steven Stempien after 200 laps, where Stempien leads 196, a new record in the modern era of DTH Cup Series racing. So now this schedule graphic is not entirely accurate after the tire test last night at the virtual North Wilkesboro Speedway. The drivers in the best interest have decided to go elsewhere. So now we'll figure out what track that will be tomorrow. And on the KBueno Racing Network Truck Series broadcast tomorrow from Mexico City, we'll probably give you the details as to where DTH Cup action will lie next Sunday. But regardless, be tuned with us on March 22nd at 8:30 p.m. Eastern right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel after we close out Race 4 and we end up in this regular season stretch to the All-Star event in mid-April on the 19th. Be sure to stay tuned with us tomorrow night for the KBRN Truck Series as Road Course Week ensues. Mexico City, brand new track on the KBueno Racing Network, brand new track for the KBRN Truck Series as the best of the best take on that road course. Very fun to race out with the Truck Series machines. That coverage will come to you at 8:30 p.m. Eastern right here on the KBueno Racing Network. And then on Wednesday, the playoffs begin for the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series in Season 8. They go playoff racing from Sin City and Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That coverage will come to you on the following Wednesday of this week, on the 18th at 8:35 p.m. Eastern for the Thousand Islands Correct pre-race show with coverage of the race at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Thursday, the SAC Cup Series comes back. They'll also be road course racing in the Circuit of Adelaide, the street circuit down in Australia. So a trip down under for the SAC Cup Series in their second road course affair of Season 5. That coverage also begins at 8:30 p.m. Eastern here on the KBueno Racing Network. So that will do it from us here at the virtual Echo Park Speedway on a largely dominated night for Steven Stempien. Ends up setting a new lap leading record in a single race and ends up with his second career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. For everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Nate Polite, Eli Comerford, Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, Francisco Bacallao, and on behalf of everyone at the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series for Steven Stempien and the lot, on behalf of everyone at KBRN, I am Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Hotlanta, where Steven Stempien emerges victorious. Sweet revenge at Echo Park Speedway as we head to a mystery track next Sunday. We'll see you then.